Okay, tonight is the first time we'll be doing it, so we'll see how it works out. Okay, we're live. So, good evening, and good evening again to all of our council members, because it's a new night for everybody, right? Being back on the dais after so many months of taking our meetings from home. But first up, we have our proclamations, awards, and presentations. If I could just do a sound check, Mr. Machado, is the volume okay with the mask on? Okay, very good. So I know we love to recognize and celebrate, and I love when we get emails from our residents regarding the professionalism or customer service of our amazing staff here. And as Manager Morano mentioned to me earlier, he said, we are a very small group of people, so in terms of staff, and I think it's wonderful given all of the pressures that they have and the number of things they do in any given day. It's always wonderful to get a note. So I think we have joining us live, and again, for the viewing public, this is new. We have, there we go, very good. Can you hear us, Mr. Maltby, Director Maltby? Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
wonderful. I would also mention it might be helpful, at least for me, to have these other televisions on, so that I don't have to turn around. So today we're here for recognizing Miss Luana Diaz, and we received a letter. I don't know if everybody received it, but I believe you all may have, from Mr. Jose Quinones, who wrote to, and he's from Miami Custom Swimming Pool Corporation, saying that he wanted to recognize and acknowledge the dedication and professionalism of Ms. Luana Diaz of the Village of Palmetto Bay Building Department. And he said, every time I have called, she has been quick to answer, is courteous and helpful. She has helped me with the permit applications and documents. It's been a pleasure working with Ms. Diaz at the Village of Palmetto Bay Building Department. And again, I know some of these things seem small, but to our staff, who largely their work many times goes unnoticed, I think it's important to make sure that we all recognize them. So this evening, I see you there, Ms. Diaz. How are you? Good evening.
Good. Thank you.
So this evening, we're going to present you virtually, and I'll leave it with the manager to make sure you receive it when he sees you next. Ms. Diaz, whom is most deserving of this recognition for her professionalism and dedicated service as permit clerk to the Village of Palmetto Bay Building Department. Her services to the constituents of the village is exemplary, and we are grateful for your continuing service and support to our beautiful Palmetto Bay. So we thank you very much. And I know that, Wes, you wanted to say a few words, because I know you work directly with Ms. Diaz.
Yes, please. It's probably longer than I thought. At least a couple of years ago, Gladys and I did go into a regular job interview. This time it was with Lavina. And I was kind of, you get it, or at least from my perspective, I'm focused in on, I've got a job application, I've got a resume, I've got a questionnaire from HR, and you're kind of laser focused on that. I'm probably a little nervous. Poor Lavina is probably, amazingly nervous at a job interview. I already had a job. But early on through the interview, her personality took over. And it made me realize, and really sunk in, later too, that with a personality like Lavina's, the rest of that formality stuff is, became secondary. And I realized, and Gladys and I spoke about it later, that this is somebody you just have to capture. I mean, you've got the opportunity, they're there, we need somebody like this, And if she, whatever else comes along, every day at work, you learn what you need to learn. If she needed to learn anything, she'd learn it at work over time. And she's done that. She's just really special. And we're lucky to have her. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ms. Diaz, would you like to say anything?
Yeah, I want to say thank you to my boss. He's the best. As Gladys, she is also. And thank you for this recognition. In our department, we go the extra mile for our customers, for our residents, every day, every time. And just thank you again. And we will keep the good work for sure. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, and thanks for your service to our community. Okay, and that concludes our recognitions, presentations, and proclamations. So we will be waiting the 11 minutes until 7 p.m. To begin the regular portion of our meeting.
Madam Mayor, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear a voice from somewhere.
This is Daniela Levine-Cava, your county mayor.
Oh, wonderful. I don't see you, but we certainly do hear you. It's like a voice from heaven.
Well, that would be nice, but I just have COVID, not from heaven. But I did want to make some remarks to welcome the new council members. So whenever is appropriate, you could let me know.
Sure. Would you mind waiting until 7, or would you like to make them right now? We're still live.
As you wish, Madam Mayor.
Yeah. Mayor, why don't you go ahead? Because I know your time is limited as well.
Very good. So I don't know if you can see me. I've signed on, but I can see you.
We cannot. Yes. Unfortunately, we cannot. Bear with me just one moment, if you would, Mayor.
Yes. Share my webcam. Oh, wait. There we go. Can
there
you
are. We see you.
Excellent. Well, I see you, and it's great to be with you, even though not in person in chambers. And I've had the great pleasure to appear many, many times as county commissioner to this wonderful group. And now is a new day, like you said, Madam Mayor. So I just wanted to take the opportunity to pop in and congratulate our new Vice Mayor, Tellum, and our Councilman Cody, joining a very wonderful group of elected officials in Palmetto Bay. And also to extend my best wishes to you, Madam Mayor Cunningham, and all the members of the Palmetto Bay Village Council. So you are my neighbors. I'm very proud to call you my representatives. I live right here in Palmetto Bay, and I want to thank you for being exemplary during these difficult times. I know that you've adapted, you've responded, you've supported, assisted, everything from parks to special assistance, seniors, children. You've done it all in these unprecedented times, and your local leadership and your caring for this community warms my heart. And I know that you're going to continue your efforts to keep our community safe. So it is an extraordinary honor. I know you all know that, to serve, especially in a moment of crisis that brings even greater responsibilities. And now more than ever, working together is the way forward. So I know that you're going to bring exactly that spirit of cooperation and foundation for a greater future. And as your county mayor, I will have your backs. I'll make sure that my administration is doing everything within our power to provide Palmetto Bay residents what they need to thrive. And you can count on me. I'm just a stone's throw away. Congratulations once again, and thank you so very much to the entire council.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, before you leave, I understand as well, and I was going to mention it after 7 o'clock, an appointment was made by the County Commission today for District 8. Can you share, since we have you, here. Can
Yes.
you share a little bit about that?
Yes, absolutely. So now you have a new county commissioner, of course, to complete a 2-year balance of the term, and then there'll be an election in 2 years. Danielle Cohn Higgins was selected by the county commission in I think it was 11-1 vote. I think everybody was present. And so it was a great affirmation. Clearly, many preferred that there be an election. It was the decision of the commission how to proceed, and the majority of the commission was prepared to make an appointment based on those who had expressed interest. There were 4 who had registered to run for the seat in 2022, and then there were an additional couple that stepped forward in the period of time that was requested. So you now have someone to occupy the office. I don't know if she's going to continue at the Southdale Government Center. I think she will, and we're here to assist her in the transition in any way that we can. Of course, she is also a resident of Palmetto Bay, so Palmetto Bay has done very well with representation on the county commission.
That's right, and Palmetto Bay's got talent.
There you go. There you go.
Mayor,
And,
thank you. That was very kind of you to join us tonight. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Yes, my pleasure, and I'm here for you at any time, and happy holidays to all of you. Be safe. We know we are having a surge, and it's on all of us to continue to mask, take the precautions like you're doing, and to make sure to stay distant, not congregate, and get tested if there's any doubt, isolate, etc. Everyone knows the drill. So thank you again for the opportunity.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
The thing that says talk like that. The self-explanatory icon.
Otto, are we live? Okay, very good, thank you. All right, good evening. Madam Clerk, can you call this meeting of Monday, December 7th at 7 p.m., our regular Village Council meeting to order, please?
Mayor Karen Cunningham,
Present.
Vice Mayor Leanne Tellum,
Present.
Councilmember Patrick Fiore,
Present.
Councilmember Steve Cody,
Present.
Councilmember Marsha Matson.
Here.
Mayor, we have quorum.
Thank you. If I could get Councilmember Fiore to lead us in a short invocation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just please bow our heads. Dear Lord, as we come before you this evening with two new leaders in our community sworn in, we ask for guidance for them, wisdom for them, and guidance and wisdom for my colleagues here. At this very, very difficult time in our nation's history, we pray daily for our healthcare workers, doctors and nurses and respiratory technicians and all the people in the hospital and the health field working very hard at this very moment to save lives of people hospitalized with the coronavirus. We ask for prayers for all our first responders, police and fire that are also on the front lines, and our essential workers, those forgotten people that work in the grocery stores and the restaurants and that provide a service that sometimes is underappreciated. We ask for help also with those that are suffering from food insecurity and threatened with eviction and foreclosure during this time, and not only in the United States but all over the world. So, Lord, in your infinite wisdom, we ask for prayer for all of these people. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. Could I get everybody to please stand? And if I could get Councilmember Cody, could you please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
Indivisible, liberty, and justice for all. Thank you. As I have for every council meeting during my tenure, I'm going to waive the decorum statement. We've already done our proclamations. We'll move to approval of the minutes. Could I get somebody to move the minutes from October 26th forward? Is there a second for approval? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. Before we go into request petitions and public comments, I just want to say, for those of you that are viewing from home, we've got a little bit of a hybrid model here. I ask for your patience. We have the council members and our village manager here on the dais. We have our village clerk working remotely from her office. We have our village attorney working remotely from his home. And we're going to be taking requests, petitions, and public comments in 3 pieces. So those of you that are at home had the opportunity to send in a written email or on the form, the request for public comment form. You also had the ability to click the link to register, and we will take those comments working with our IT department. If you are at home and you are going to give your public comments virtually, you're going to need to make sure you click on the raise hand, and the IT department will assist me because I don't have access to that, so they will assist in letting me know who has their hand up. And then we also have 1 member resident in the audience. So for those items that that individual wishes to speak to, they did sign up for those items. I'll make sure to call you on those particular items. So we'll start with any comments, Madam Clerk, on the form.
James Woodard. 17001 Southwest 90th Avenue. Congratulations and welcome to Palmetto Bay for Vice Mayor Tellum and Councilmember Cody, including Manager Barano. A special congratulations and thank you to Mayor Cunningham for navigating us through a once-in-a-lifetime plague while simultaneously enduring undeserved daily attacks from those, known and unknown, with a vested interest in her failure. Last but not least, thanks to Council members Mattson and Fiore and outgoing Vice Mayor Dubois for their dedicated work in very trying times. I look forward to 2 years of civility and reason. Eric Tolberg, 7884 Southwest 179th Terrace. Park Drive needs to be connected to Southwest 175th Terrace with an 8-foot sidewalk too. The east sidewalk of Park Drive needs to be connected to Palmetto Bay Park at multiple places. This is a must if the DUV is to be walkable and bikeable. Some of the connections will require an extended ramp to meet ADA requirements. 30 inches max, rise in 30 feet with a 1.12 slope. I understand we got $80,000 in grant funds for a revised bikeable plan. I have extensive knowledge of biking and walking in Palmetto Bay. Please contact me. Rainer Schall, 18171 Southwest 90th Court. Question is in reference to the old FPL site. How much has the village spent on legal fees and how much more is anticipated? Do we, the community, have a good chance of prevailing? What happens if we lose? What type of exposure are we looking at here? Are we looking at another Palmer Trinity or larger situation here? Thanks to everyone and please stay safe. This is the end of public comments submitted by form for section 4 of the agenda.
Thank you. We'll now move into the virtual portion of the public comments. Mr. Machado, does anybody have their hand up virtually? If you are in the virtual lobby, you'll need to click on the raised hand if you wanted to speak during the public comment portion. Obviously, there's many items on tonight's agenda, so there'll be other opportunities for speaking as well. I'm going to go ahead and, Ms. Gerald, since you're the only one here, do you want to make public comments? Please give your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
That one. Okay, thank you. Good evening and welcome to our two newest, all of you, and to our two newest members, of which I am so delighted. Vice Mayor Tellum, Councilman District 2, Steve Cody. I signed up tonight to support ordinances 11A, which I think is very important, especially since we have new members on the council that will allow you to make inquiries of department heads, and it'll be helpful in getting more information for you. I am very much in favor of 11B. I think we all know that this particular ordinance really came about because of one member, now former member on the council, that sort of engendered this kind of ordinance that would be only fair that there has to be a limit and has to be some kind of responsibility for irresponsible lawsuits that go nowhere. So I'm very much in favor of your passing that tonight. Also, under resolutions, I support resolutions 14C and 14D. I feel we need the best representation of retaining Ben Cooney to represent the village. Enough is enough. Former Councilman Singer has just been relentless in his absolutely baseless ethics complaints, lawsuits, etc. So I think it's very, very necessary. Our village attorney has explained, I think, very well why he feels it's necessary to retain Mr. Cooney. And as of course he cannot do it himself, and we need the very best people to make sure that we prevail. This may not be the last of what we see from our former councilman, but I think perhaps if he knows that there'll be more reaction to in a legal way, that perhaps he'll learn and just give it a rest. So I thank you for your attention and also welcome our new manager, Mr. Morano. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. I believe we have one individual with their hand up in the virtual lobby. Did we get that IT stuff straightened out?
Mr. Singer, go ahead and speak.
Thank you very much to the mayor and the council. Glad to be here listening tonight. I request that the mayor and council, village council, condemn stores or residents who have in the past or continue to sell Nazi paraphernalia in Palmetto Bay, as it is not only anti-Semitic but racist and has no place in our or any other community. I also request that the mayor and council condemn public officials who, while serving the village of Palmetto Bay, are having affairs with individuals when they know the outcome will be devastating to their families and especially their kids. Until those are condemned by the council, I'll be saying the same thing at every meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think there was a problem with the audio because I could not quite make that out, so I don't know if there's a way.
I'm more than happy to repeat it again.
No,
I request that the mayor and village council condemn stores or residents who have in the past or continue to sell Nazi paraphernalia in Palmetto Bay, as it is not only anti-Semitic but racist and has no place in our or any other community. I also request that the mayor and village council condemn public officials while serving in the village of Palmetto Bay as having affairs with individuals when they know the outcome will be devastating to families, especially the families' kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, are there any other individuals with hands up in the virtual lobby?
No, Madam Mayor, right now there isn't.
I'm sorry, Mr. Machado, can you speak slowly for me? I'm
Right
not
now
hearing-
there are no hands raised.
Thank you, thank you. All right, then with that, I'm going to go ahead and close the request, petitions, and public comments, and we'll move into the village manager's report.
Well, good evening, everyone, and I want to thank you for this opportunity to give you my first manager's report here. Let me start with the Franjo Road project. As you know, we have been working for quite some time with our contractors this year to not only finalize the costs that are due, but also to finish the project. So over the past month, we have made substantial progress in that. We hosted a meeting here about 10 days ago with the contractor. We established a due date this past Friday for certain documents that we owed them and certain documents that they owed us. We met the timeline, provided the documents on Friday. The contractor requested additional time. So either by the close of business today or tomorrow, I expect to have their documents, and we're going to continue to work through this process with them to not only finish the project under budget, but also to get everything in terms of what still needs to be done completed. So I should have hopefully more to report by the next time we get back together again. Our monthly COVID update, as you know, we track very closely the testing numbers, the rates of positivity, as well as other things like the numbers of hospitalizations countywide and things like that. So as you all were aware, last week, the rate of positivity in the county hit 10%. And 10% was a number that we had established internally as a go, no-go criteria for village-hosted events. And as a result, we went virtual for the State of the Village. We went virtual for the menorah and Christmas lighting. And we've obviously conducted these hybrid public meetings here this evening. We're going to continue to monitor that positivity rate. It's back down to 8.5% as of today. That's just a mark in time. Who knows what it's going to do in the future. If you look at things like hospitalization rates, even though the numbers of cases has increased quite substantially over the past really 4 weeks, the hospitalization rate has remained fairly constant between 700 and 800. Again, that's a county-wide number. So if you look at some of the more important indicators, ICU beds used, we're only at about 40% of capacity. So if there is a silver lining, it's that the hospitalization rates, the ER admissions have remained quite static, even with an increase in cases. Continuing on, I've proposed to conduct a visioning session in January. I'll get with each one of you to confirm your availabilities, but I would propose the week of January 25th, and specifically if we could do it on Tuesday, the 26th, but I'll confirm with each one of you your availability. I think this is a great opportunity to do a number of things. First, we can update our strategic plan. We can also get council's priorities for the next fiscal year. So as we start work on next year's budget, it would be important to get priorities from council on where you'd like to see our resources go as we begin our budget planning. So I think a visioning session would be well worth a day of our time, and I'll get with you each to confirm your availability for that. I think I've talked about, and the mayor hit on it in the State of the Vision address, we're working hard on a service request app. This will be something that'll be resident on a smartphone, and it'll also be on our village website. It'll give the average resident the ability to download a free app, either from the Apple Store or from the Google Play Store, and they'll be able to notify staff of any type of a problem, downed tree limbs, an abandoned car, whatever, and then they'll be able to track the status of the remedy of that problem. And then it'll give us as leaders the ability to not only supervise the remedy of problems for residents, but we'll be able to come up with data, and we'll be able to make data-driven decisions in the future. So I'm really looking forward to rolling this out. It's not going to be a lot of money. It's going to take probably about 6 months to get all the information we need into it and to roll it out effectively. But it's not going to be a great deal of money. So I'm very happy to report that we started work on that, and I expect to have that certainly no longer than 6 months. And I'm going to push very hard to do it much before that. Legislative agenda, as you know, the legislature is going to meet. They're going to convene on March 2nd, and they adjourn on April 30th this year. Due to budget constraints, we haven't hired a lobbyist in Tallahassee, so I'm going to work very closely with the League of Cities. I already have their legislative priorities for this coming session. We're going to work very closely with them, leverage the League of Cities in terms of providing advocacy for us in Tallahassee. Where I came from the state capitol. I'm used to tracking bills as they move through the process, and I'm going to do the same here, and I'll be able to provide an update as we get closer to the beginning of session. You also have in your package here that the clerk provided a copy of the priorities from the county school board. So you get to see theirs as well. And we'll track together with them throughout the session. Finally, I'd like to bring up Commander Guerra. I think you're going to join us virtually, or no, you're going to join us in person for the commander's report.
Welcome, Commander. Hit the mic so that the public can hear you as well.
Good evening to all. Despite the challenges of COVID-19 in 2020, we're closing the year down 30% down in crime. We've had a lot of challenges trying to keep enforcing the emergency orders from the county mayor, but we've had a very close relationship, and we've worked very closely with Village Code compliance, and using our emergency commercial identification program that we have, that we put it together with code enforcement for natural disasters or like hurricanes. We were able to use that database to contact all the businesses and repeatedly visit them and make sure they're in compliance with everything. Despite all that, like I said, we're down 30% in crime for the year, and we were able to keep our response time within the contract limits of Miami-Dade County and the village of Palmetto Bay. Does anybody have any questions for me? Well, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Is that all, Mr. Manager?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Does anyone have questions for the village manager? Mr. Attorney.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Council. First, of course, I want to lend my congratulations to both Ms. Tellem and Mr. Cody for being members of the council. I know all of us have been looking forward to that. Just a few items. First, of course, is my report in the agenda. And if anybody has a question about any of the items listed, I'll be happy to answer them. In regard to the Luxcom matter, we are preparing a motion to dismiss that will be forwarded to you guys, of course, once it's filed. As far as the Luxcom item goes, on January 5th, during our regular council meeting, we will have an executive session. In the vernacular, I think it's been referred to also as a shade session. During that meeting, the regular council meeting, we will recess to have an executive session, which according to statute can be outside of the public. There will be a court reporter present, and at the end of the litigation, everything that's said at that executive meeting will then become public. But I wanted to announce to the public today that we will be having that executive session on the 5th. It'll be during the regular council meeting. We will be recessing, having the meeting, and then coming back to the regular agenda. Let's see. I'm sorry. Oh, Village Center, the Village Center zoning matter was supposed to this Wednesday, the 9th. That meeting has been canceled. The applicant has indicated they want to hold the meeting sometime in late February, but a date has not been established yet. They will be re-advertising, and they will be paying for the re-advertisement and for the notices. I think Those are the only items I wanted to report on right now. And I'll be happy to, of course, answer any questions of the council.
I was just going to mention that I think the January meeting is on January 4th, and I'll confirm that with Madam Clerk.
I think that's right. That's
Monday.
right.
That
I
was
was trying to trick the public into thinking it was on the 5th, but I'm sorry.
We're fully transparent. We don't trick the public.
Okay, I'll stop doing that.
And then just a quick question before I check to see if any of my colleagues have questions. Do you need a motion for the change in the meeting on the 9th?
No, what we need is for the council to vote to cancel the meeting and indicating that it will be rescheduled in late February. I think there's yeah.
Thanks. Can I get somebody to make a motion to cancel the January 9th?
Ask a question. Well, after the motion.
I can't hear you. I'm sorry. You had it on. You just have to do it louder for me.
I'll make the motion for the purpose of discussion.
Thank you. Is there a second? Okay.
The only clarification I wanted was whether or not it was the applicant that withdrew the request for the meeting, and therefore it's causing us to cancel the meeting.
Councilwoman Pelham, yes, the applicant has asked not to go forward on the 9th.
But I'll be speaking. I'll be voting in favor.
For any other discussion? Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. So the January 9th meeting is canceled. Yeah, and I'm sorry to my colleagues with the plexiglass. For me at least, we have to, especially with the masks on, feel free to use your outdoor voice so everybody can hear you well, especially me. Are there any other questions for the attorney?
Yes,
Yes, Councilman Cody?
Yes, I wanted to, not so much a question, but to ask the attorney to pass on my congratulations to the Leighton and Schultz firm. I read the opinion from the appellate panel of the 11th Circuit and found that to be very enlightening, and I know it's going to have an effect upon the other litigation that's been brought by Yacht Club by Lexicon LLC. But if you would convey at least my congratulations to Dexter and to his associates, I think it was a well-earned opinion that we got.
Here, Mr. Attorney? Yes.
As a matter of fact, Councilman Cody, yes, I have extended my congratulations to both Dexter and Claudio, and it is a wonderful decision, completely vindicating the actions the council took, and we should in fact recognize them, as you just have, for having prevailed in that action.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney.
Thank you, Council Member. Anybody else? Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Attorney. We'll go now to...
You're welcome.
Thanks. We'll go now to the village clerk's report.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
First of all, I want to thank newly elected Vice Mayor Tellum and Councilmember Cody for deciding to participate in their local government by running for office. Having served as the village's supervisor of elections during the 2020 campaign, I do appreciate the time, energy, and commitment of all the candidates, including the newly elected. So with that said, welcome Vice Mayor Leanne Tellum and Councilmember Steve Cody. Moving forward on the calendar for the month of December 2020, it's short. The only meeting on the calendar this month is the Education Advisory Virtual Board meeting scheduled for Wednesday, December 9th at 7 p.m. The next regular council meeting of the Village Council is set for Monday, January 4th, 2021 at 7 p.m. And last but not least, today, several Village Canvassing Board members met with the Elections Department to successfully complete the audit process for the village's general and runoff election. I have nothing further to add to the clerk's report, and I'm open to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody have questions for the clerk? Madam Clerk, when is the next committee of the whole?
There are no committee of the whole workshops during the month of December. However, the council will get together on January 19th, 2021. That will
Very
be the
good.
first committee of the whole meeting in the new year.
Great. Would you mind adding to that committee of the whole legislative agenda?
Confirmed.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. We'll go into the board and committee reports. Would somebody move the Education Advisory Board meeting minutes forward? Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. We don't have any, and let me ask one more question because this is the first time we're dealing with the change in the order of so many new things tonight. Change in the order of the agenda. Mr. Attorney, for the consent agenda, when do I ask for if any of the items were timely pulled? I know we only have two, but I know I pulled one, so I'm trying to figure out how we're going to work that.
I think you can ask that right up front. I know that we're not getting to the consent agenda until later, but I think you can ask this right now whether the council members have pulled any items.
Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk, have any of the consent agenda items been timely pulled?
Item 12B of the consent agenda was timely pulled.
Okay, thank you. If there's no objection, then we will hear 12B following hearing the items not pulled from the consent agenda. Okay, we have no emergency ordinances. We have no ordinances for second reading. At this time, we'll move into ordinances for first reading with public comments. What I'm going to do, Mr. Machado, is, and Madam Clerk, as we go item by item, we'll just, for the purposes of clarity, we'll hear any written comments. We'll hear any virtual comments. And then we'll hear any comments from individuals in the audience. For those that are in the virtual lobby, as we get to the item, if you want to speak to it, please make sure you put your virtual hand up so that Mr. Machado knows it, so that we don't have huge delays for each one of the items. So with that, would somebody move item 11A forward? Is there a second? Great, and don't forget to use your outside voice so that Madam Clerk can hear you. She mentioned she's having a hard time hearing our Vice Mayor, so if we could speak up a little bit. Madam Clerk, can you go ahead and read the item?
Item 11A, an ordinance of the Mayor and Village Council of the Village of Palmetto Bay, Florida, implementing the charter amendment approved by the electorate that allows the mayor and council to make direct inquiries and ask for information from village employees, providing for severability, codification, and an effective date, sponsored by Councilmember Marsha Matson.
Thank you,
No
Madam.
public comments were submitted by form for this item.
Thank you. Mr. Machado, does anybody have their hand up in the virtual lobby?
I see no hands raised at this time.
Thank you. We had one speaker, Ms. Gerald. Do you want to come forward? You signed up to speak on 11A. We have your name. Yeah, please turn on the mic. Madam Clerk, I have the sign-in sheet, so I have the name, our name and address for the record, if that's okay.
Not sure.
Yes, Mayor.
Is it? Okay.
Go ahead.
Bev Gerald, 14271 Southwest 74th Court. I guess I mentioned it before, but I am very much in favor of this ordinance, which I think will allow the council the ability to receive information, which was more difficult under the previous administration. So I think this is a step in the right direction. It in no way means that the council will be directing the manager, but it's a way to receive information, meet with department heads, and not have to be, have perhaps a presence that would be intimidating to their retaining or obtaining information to help them do their job better. So I strongly urge you to support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there a staff report or Councilwoman Matson report?
I'll make the report.
Thank you.
All this does is codify or request to codify a charter amendment that was passed by the voters on November 3rd. And essentially it is, shall a charter amendment allow council members to make informational inquiries of village employees? Now, this was not particularly the case in the last administration, and I was very interested. I was very happy that the Charter Review Commission put this forward, and I'm very happy that the voters decided this was a good thing. So I would just like to encourage you all to support it because it will allow you to make informational inquiries without worrying about violating the charter in terms of talking to staff members. Thank you.
We'll go through discussion first. Councilmember Cody.
I've got no comments other than I support this measure.
Councilmember Fiore.
No, I support the item.
Vice Mayor.
I intend to support the measure too.
I'm going to support the item. Can I call the question? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Great.
Madam Mayor, I
Thank
believe
you.
it's an ordinance. Is it roll call
Oh, I'm
vote?
so sorry. You know what? You're right because it's. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Because we're. Thank you. Because we're. I'm used to doing the resolutions first. Thank you. Roll call vote, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Marsha Matson,
Yes.
Councilmember Patrick Fiore,
Yes.
Mayor Karen Cunningham,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Leanne Tellum,
Yes.
Councilmember Steve Cody.
Yes.
The item passes 5-0. Councilwoman Matson, my
Yes.
understanding is you're withdrawing.
Yes,
item-
I wish to withdraw item 11B.
Okay, thank you. Could I get somebody to move? Okay, I'm so sorry. Now we're into the consent agenda. Can I get somebody to move the one item? We had one item that was pulled.
Moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, consent agenda passes. If we could now move forward, the item that had been timely pulled.
Both be moved.
Is there a second? Second. Madam Clerk, can you read the item?
A resolution of the Mayor and Village Council of the Village of Palmetto Bay, Florida, relating to council meeting procedures, announcing the regular council meeting schedule, the land development permit hearings, committee of the whole workshops, and the budget workshops for the year 2021, and providing for an effective date. Sponsored by Village Clerk Missy Arocha.
Thank you. I pulled the item just for the purposes of discussion because we have new colleagues and I wanted to make sure that they were good with the calendar. Okay. Okay.
I have a comment.
Okay.
I have a comment.
Okay. Councilwoman Matson.
I would like to propose that under section 2, land development permit hearings, aka zoning hearings, that we also add a July date to that. Because right now we have January, February, March, April, May, June, and then we don't have anything until September, October, and November, and we have a big lineup of zoning cases. We won't be meeting in August, but I think we should not skip the whole summer in terms of meeting, zoning meetings.
Okay. Anyone have questions or want to discuss? Councilmember Fiore?
Yeah, I'll support Dr. Matson's amendment.
Okay. I just have I have a question. Do we have any ordinances that, I know that we don't do August meetings and that is isn't that by ordinance?
Correct. The Court of Ordinances suggests that there are no council meetings during the month of August.
Okay, we don't have anything that prohibits us from having meetings during the month of July?
No, Mayor.
Okay. All right, then all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, the item passes 5-0. We don't have any resolutions requiring public hearings, so we will move into the resolutions with public comment. We'll do these in the exact same manner we did the ordinances, one at a time. Would somebody move item 14A forward?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Madam Clerk, can you read the item?
Item 14A, a resolution of the Mayor and Village Council of the Village of Palmetto Bay, Florida, regarding the COVID-19 virus pandemic in order to safeguard and protect the health, safety, and welfare of the public. The Mayor and Council resolve that the village's advisory boards, committees, task forces, charter officers, and staff shall continue to meet virtually, commencing December 1st, 2020. The Mayor and Village Council members shall be present to maintain quorum at meetings requiring legislative action. Allowing any council member who believes that they are high risk are not required to be physically present, but shall be allowed to participate virtually while being physically present in Village Hall. Waiving all applicable requirements within the village charter, code of ordinances, resolutions, or other village policy that may require the physical presence at any public meeting. That all virtual meetings shall continue to comply with the Florida Constitution, Florida's government in the Sunshine Law, and Chapter 286 Florida statutes. The terms of this resolution shall be incorporated into a manager's declaration of emergency pursuant to Section 14-80 of the Village Charter and Section 252.38 subsection 2 Florida statutes, and continuing until the current village-wide state of emergency has ended, and providing for an effective date. Sponsored by Mayor Karen Cunningham. No public comments were submitted by form for item 14A.
Thank you. Mr. Machado, do we have any comments from folks in the lobby?
No hands raised at this time.
Thank you. And Ms. Gerald, you did not sign up for 14A, so. I brought this item forward. I know we already, I just signed an emergency order along with the village manager regarding our council meetings. I thought it important. I know we pride ourselves on having an engaged community. We also pride ourselves on the wonderful number of volunteers we have that participate as volunteers in our task forces and committees. Many of them are not yet comfortable coming together to be physically present. So I thought it important for us to have some policy that permits them to move forward meeting virtually, as well as some of the other intricacies for our council meetings. Mr. Attorney, do you have any other comments? I know that wasn't an adequate staff report, but it's the reason I brought the item forward.
You're the mayor. It was a great report. There are various permeations of this throughout Dade and Broward County. Some cities are doing it completely virtually, including the council. I drafted this at your direction and tried to balance all the interests of both the public and those people who, as you state, are just residents who do a volunteer basis. And so other cities have done this. In fact, after reviewing many of the other city resolutions, I basically modeled this on that of Miami Beach. I thought their resolution was very well thought out and researched. And so we're doing this to protect you and the public.
Are there questions or discussion? We can kind of combine them. No? Okay. No? I'm learning to read you guys over here. I know what their faces say as soon as I look at them, even with masks on. So I'm trying to figure out the eyes over here. Okay, great. Then all those in favor of item 14A? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The item passes 5-0. So I also understand that for 14B, everyone should have in front of them a substitute resolution. Mr. Attorney, is it appropriate for us to move the substitute resolution forward?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, everybody's been copied with it, and you can move that one forward.
Okay. Would somebody move the substitute resolution?
move.
Thank you. Is there a second? Madam Clerk, can you read the substitute resolution caption for us?
A resolution of the Mayor and Village Council of the Village of Palmetto Bay, Florida, related to grants, accepting a grant award of $500,000 under the State of Florida Inland Navigation District Waterways Assistance Program for Thalata State Park Shoreline Stabilization and Pier under project known as DAPB 20245, allocating the village match of $298,828 as follows: $149,414 to be budgeted in fiscal year 2020-2021, and $149,814 to be budgeted in fiscal year 2021-2022. Authorizing the village manager to execute the grant agreement and other related documents as required, providing for an effective date. Sponsored by administration. No items or public comments were submitted by form for this item.
Thank you. Mr. Machado, do we have any virtual hands raised?
Madam Mayor, there are no hands raised at this time.
Thank you. And Ms. Gerald, you did not, we don't have anybody here that's speaking to this particular item. So who's doing the staff report? I know originally it was your item, correct?
Yeah, I'll be glad to.
Yep.
All right, so I wrote down my arguments because there are a lot of them for why I'm bringing this back. The council last month voted against it. But since that time, I've come to understand that there are many good arguments for doing this. So in the interest of being very comprehensive, I've written down my arguments. I'm going to read them. It's not going to take longer than 4 minutes.
Please.
I've timed it. All right. This grant is for shoreline stabilization and a pier at Thalata Park. It's valued at $1 million.
Dr. Manson, one moment, please. I see Mr. Attorney. Yes, Mr. Attorney.
Yeah, there has to be a motion for reconsideration.
Okay. Can I get a
Move to reconsider.
Okay. Is there a second? All those in favor? Aye.
Okay.
Anyone opposed? Madam Clerk?
I'm having a really hard time hearing when someone makes a motion or moves or seconds an item.
We're just going to ask everyone, you got to really, especially with the mask on, got to move in on the mic a little bit.
I move for reconsideration.
I
Madam
second
Clerk.
it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, go ahead.
All right, this grant is for shoreline stabilization and pier at Thalata Park. It's valued at $1 million.
Mr. De La Gloria is also asking for attention again.
Mr.
I-
Attorney?
I apologize. You have to vote on the motion for reconsideration.
We did.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's
I
okay.
apologize.
It's all right. You probably didn't hear us.
Might be easier this way. This means that the state of Florida will contribute $296,000 and Palmetto Bay will contribute $296,000 to stabilize the shore and build a viewing pier. Or to think about it another way, Palmetto Bay will contribute $149,000 for each of 2 years. This is the second time the grant acceptance has come before the council. I previously voted no because I did not believe that during our budget crunch we could afford it. But since then I have brought the grant back because important facts can be brought out to show that the grant is a great benefit to Palmetto Bay and that indeed we can afford it. The grant process began in 2016 under a different council. Palmetto Bay has already invested 4.5 years of staff time and $47,500 in pursuing 4 permits. The grant paid, Florida also paid $47,500 for the permits. We have issued an RFP. We hired Stantec for engineering and we selected a contractor to bring the process to this final stage. The 4 permits are from the Florida Department of the Environment, the Army Corps of Engineers, and the South Florida Water Management District. The permits expire in January 2021, so that's why I'm bringing it back even on your first meeting. I'm reluctant to do it, but time is of the essence on this. So the decision must be made at this council meeting to keep the grant award. Palmetto Bay, if Palmetto Bay does not pass this, unfortunately, will get a negative reputation about grants, of which we apply for several each year and usually receive them. So I wouldn't want Palmetto Bay Council to get that reputation. And also we would lose out on a $600,000 project because the contractor came back with a $598,000 project bid. So the grant is for $1 million, but the contractor came back with $598,000 that it would cost for the job. The project is also in the Thalada Master Plan, which was approved by this council last year. By voting to accept this grant, we show our commitment to the grant, to the master plan, and to preserving our valuable historic park, and also protecting Biscayne Bay. We have a responsibility to Thalada, a historic treasure that we have been entrusted with. We also need to stabilize the shoreline at Thalada. I was there last week and I saw that the shoreline is eroding close to the balcony, which is ironic in the sense that that balcony is part of our front page of our website. So we do value that, and it is an expression of who we are as Palmetto Bay. There are environmental arguments as well. We need to stabilize the shoreline. Hurricane Irma ripped it up, and sea level rise is threatening it. I have requested an expert to be here to answer any of your questions you may have about the pier and the stabilization and how the pier works with stabilization. The project is good for Biscayne Bay. In the Friends of Palmetto Bay report in item 14G that we're going to be doing, municipalities are encouraged to take proactive steps to prevent coastal flooding and protect against sea level rise. An important part of the grant is its economic impact. In pre-COVID times and in the post-COVID future, Thalada brings significant revenue to the village park system. It helps finance the entire park system. Really, it's the biggest money earner during the pre-COVID times. The pier will be an attractive amenity, adding to the value of the property for residents and events. Also, the construction will create jobs for county residents. So now for the elephant in the room, where do we get the money? Here I will turn over the discussion to the manager, who will describe how and where, in fact, we do have the money to build it.
So thank you, Dr. Mattson. As you look at this project, Councilmember Mattson summed up pretty comprehensively what the match requirement would be from the village. For this year, we've budgeted already $100,000 to our match. The funds come out of park impact fees. This has no impact on the general fund, which is what we're concerned about in terms of budgetary impacts as we move forward through this budget year and the next. We have more than sufficient funds in the park impact fee. We will need to program an additional, just under $49,000 for this fiscal year. And we will program for next fiscal year the other $149,000. Again, there's no impact to the general fund. It comes out of park impact fees, and we have more than sufficient funding to accomplish the requirements here.
Okay. Questions of the manager or Councilwoman Mattson? Vice Mayor, then Mr. Cody.
Thank you, Mayor. With regard to my first round of questions on this, I had asked for the underlying documents so that I could see the construction proposal, and I got the plans, but I didn't see the cost expenditures, and my concern is with regard to the breakdown of the expenses. From what I'm understanding, we have to come forward with approximately $300,000 to be matched for the $598,000 cost. If that's accurate, I'd be more comfortable moving something forward of this magnitude if I was able to see those underlying documents. The new information that was just presented to me was that the permits that we've obtained, which do have value, of course, expire in January of 2021. I'd like to know when in January that expires so that maybe we could possibly consider this in the January meeting after having an opportunity to look at the underlying documents. The third thing that I have in front of me at the moment is a concern with regard to the expenditure of park impact fees, and wondering if those are also the type of fees that we would be applying if we were to instead with those funds replace previously existing facilities like the building that was at Coral Reef Park that we need to find money for to replace. Those would be the three things that are foremost on my mind.
Mr. Manager?
So I know I've got Public Services Director Torres on. I don't know if he's able to join, and let me see if he gets on. Able to
Can I say
address-
something?
One moment, please.
Oh.
Yep, I see Director Torres. Are you able to address the question specific to when the permits expire in January? And you may want to talk about the extension that we would need to do as well.
If you give me a few minutes, I'm going to look up the email to get you the exact date in January. Go ahead, Litzy.
Okay. Good evening, Council, and welcome aboard, Ms. Tellem and Mr. Cody.
Thank you.
My name is Litzy Pitzer. I'm the procurement specialist for the Village of Palmetto Bay. And for the questions for Ms. Tellem, the actual expiration date for the permits is January 20th, 2021. The worries that we have is that we do not want the permits to expire, since it had to go through the Army Corps of Engineers and it had to go through a big process. So our intent was basically to have, we have to have a pre-construction meeting before January 20th in order for them to give us an extension and keep the permits alive, let's say. So basically, you can look at the procurement process that we had for the infrastructure for the 597,000 and how we got there. But basically, it's just we need to have that pre-construction meeting before January 20th to keep the permits alive.
Thank you. Mr. Torres, did you have something you wanted to add?
I think Litzy covered. I mean, I think it was a multiple part question. I think the other document, I'm sorry, and congratulations, Vice Mayor Tellem and Council Member Cody. The other question was the bid backup, if you will, the bid tabulation form. I'm sure we can share that with you. I'm sorry it didn't make part of your package, but I'm sure we can provide them the copy of the breakdown of the bid, correct?
Yes, it's since the procurement process was completed, it's open, it's public record. So I could send it to her if she'd like to see, because the procurement process was already awarded to a vendor already. This is just the grant portion of it. So, but I could forward that information if you'd like.
Please do so.
Okay.
Please bear in mind, she doesn't have access to public email at this time, so I don't know how you're going to get that to her, but I'll leave you all to figure that out.
Would you want us to prepare a hard copy, I'm sorry, or how do we deliver that information?
Well, you know, it's something we're potentially voting on tonight, so it's going to be, you know, if there's someone that can provide a hard copy, you know, it's an item we're talking about right now, so I don't know how effective that's going to be, but
Mayor, how large of a document are we looking at here?
You want basically the bid tabulation form is what I'm assuming you will need it. So it should be like 1 or 2 sheets, right? Unless she wants the whole bid package.
If I may, what I was looking for was the bid proposal from the construction company laying out the expected costs and plan for the implementation of the build.
I have that. I have that. I just don't know. Emailing would be the best way. If I could email it, if you need to see it tonight, I could email it to Missy right now, and maybe she could make a copy and she could forward
Okay, why
that
don't
to
you
you.
do
Hang on,
that?
can I,
Thank-
can I,
Yeah, Mr.
very
Manager?
briefly, because Madam Vice Mayor, I think your intent is you want to see the details of what was in that proposal. Director Torres, do we have Stantec on the line? Would they be able to verbally provide that level of detail to the Vice Mayor here? No? Okay.
Stantec should be on the line if they can answer that question or not. Sean, if you can join us, please, and answer that better than I can. I don't know if you have any access or.
I appreciate the intent, but that's not what I'm looking for.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, other, or does that cover your questions?
Two. At least.
Why don't we come back?
See the floor.
Councilmember Cody?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that online,
Councilmember Cody, you need to speak into the mic.
I'm sorry,
That's right.
on line 18 on page 1 of 3 of the substitute resolution, it speaks of $814 and the actual Arabic numerals are 414. I would just like to get some clarification as to, it's only $400, but which is it, and do we need to amend to correct that?
Who has the accurate numbers?
Yeah, that's a typo. That should be
It's a typo. I think it's the Scribner's error. Can the attorney weigh in on that?
Mr. Attorney, did you hear?
Yes, I did. It is a Scrivener's error.
Thank you for pointing it out.
But we can just change that now without having to
Can I make
vote
a
on it.
motion that we amend this document to reflect the proper amount of $149,414 written out in words?
Thank you. That's your motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. Is that it for you, Mr. Cody? Okay. Councilmember Fiore?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, originally was also against this, but after speaking with interim manager, our former interim manager, Mr. Truitt, and our new Mr. Manager, Mr. Morano, our new manager, originally from Delaware County, Pennsylvania. At some point tonight, I had to get that in there. Drexel Hill, McDade Boulevard. And for my friends who don't remember, who may be still watching this, Discovery. Yeah, I'm going to support the item now. The financial sense, it makes more financial sense now after further information was received. Plus, you know, it was the vision of a previous council 4 years ago, and we do need. I did take a walk down there. The shoreline does need to be stabilized, and we do call ourselves Palmetto Bay, but there's only a couple places to get to the water, and I've said this 10 years ago, which is basically Deering Point, Thalata. Perhaps you go to the former vice mayor's house, or down through the woods, down behind where our current county mayor lives, or down by Royal Harbor Yacht Club. But that's private property. There is one section off of 152. So I'm going to support the item this time. I think it would be the dollars make sense after a discussion I had with management. And again, I think, you know, I support the vision they had, and I think we have to move the city forward too, and that's a great jewel for the city. So I'm going to support the item this time. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Is there other discussion? You have more questions?
I do, but I can wait until everyone's had an opportunity.
I think everyone has had an opportunity.
Okay. Well, if I may continue, I launched at this location yesterday, just across the canal. And I do have concerns with regard to shoreline erosion and sea level rise. But from what I've been able to discern from the plans, the area that we're speaking of that we are going to reinforce the shoreline is not the same area that we're talking about further up the canal. And in my experience, when you put one element into a drainage canal or a beach, you have effects to the other areas. And before I can be comfortable moving something forward that has to do with marine additions to the village at this level of cost, I would like to have the opportunity to have a little bit more time to investigate. So if it was for me personally, my vote would be to table the item until January so that we could have an opportunity to review, to get the numbers straight, and to fully understand what we are moving forward. I don't want to forego unnecessarily the $47,000 that we've invested in permits. Those permits certainly are valuable, and I can imagine that a lot of effort has gone into them. However, I believe that we can, in anticipation of a vote in January, we could set up that pre-construction meeting and still salvage the permits if we examine the item in January. So I would be moving to table the item until our January meeting and seeking a second from someone on the council.
May I comment?
Well, she just, that's her motion? Okay. Is there a second to the motion? I'll go ahead and second the motion for the purposes of discussion. And then I do have a question. Mr. Manager, if we wait, the next meeting is January 4th. Should we either table the item or move the item to the January 4th meeting? Does that still give you and your staff the opportunity to have the meeting set for the 20th and make whatever decisions it is you all need to make, subsequent after the January 4th meeting?
I would have to check with Director Torres, Madam Mayor, to put a pre-con meeting together in that would basically give us 10 working days prior to the expiration of the permits, assuming it would then be approved at that January meeting. I think it would be possible, but if Director Torres can come back on, I don't know what would involve with our contractor to put that meeting together in that period of time. And then would that accomplish what we needed to satisfy the requirement for the Corps to maintain the currency of that? I'm waiting to see Director Torres.
Mr. Machado, can you bring back? There they are.
Oh, there
Hello, I'm online. Yes, we'd basically reach out to the contractor and contact all of the stakeholders or the agencies involved and set up that pre-construction meeting in anticipation of the outcome of our January council meeting.
May I
Yes,
add a comment
Councilwoman?
here? That perhaps Director Torres can provide answers to the Vice Mayor regarding the shore stabilization and the pier and how that all works right now. Mr. Torres, may I ask him to do that? Madam Mayor?
Yes, you can.
No.
I don't necessarily know that that's going to make any big difference in the vice mayor's decision-making process. So we're going to continue to have dialogue, but it's up to you. Go ahead, Mr. Torres, so we can keep things moving.
I mean, one of the major basically parts or components of this job was the shoreline stabilization, basically on our shoreline or our frontage, if you will, to Biscayne Bay. I don't know exactly what the Vice Mayor said, something about if you add some features, it may affect others. I think she had a question specifically regarding the canal further upstream in the canal, so I'm not really sure what questions, Vice Mayor, if I've answered them or if you have further questions. And we have Stantec on the line, which are the engineers of record. They might also be able to contribute or answer some of your questions if I'm not able to. They should be available via phone on the call.
Do you want to hear from them?
Well, I can clarify for Councilman Matson's edification. You mentioned that shoreline erosion near the balcony, which would be up the canal towards the building. My understanding from the plans that I've seen is that the shoreline stabilization that we're talking about is on the bayfront and perhaps in the area right around that clump of mangroves where there's an existing ramp to move that, to put some fill in there as well. But as far as further up the canal, I would imagine that we'd have to get further involved with the South Florida Water Management District in order to stabilize that area. Am I understanding your location of the balcony mentioning correctly?
I think the best person to answer this would be Stantec. And maybe that Stantec can come on.
Mr. Torres, or Mr. Machado, why don't we bring in Stantec?
While we're waiting for them, I do agree with you, though, that I think that the audible description that they're able to present is not going to fully answer my desire to see the source documents before we move such a substantial cost forward.
Yeah, and if I could, I mean, this is what I'm hearing this evening. We've got, I support the item. However, I also think, we've got 2 new council members that are coming on board. This is one of those weird, limbo, right? You're entering and hearing a lot of information that we heard over the course of a long period of time, and you're being asked to make decisions based on maybe not having all the answers that you're looking for. So what I heard was January 4th, we would meet. Between now and January 4th, the vice mayor would be able to meet with the manager and whoever else and get these documents that she wants to take a look at, and then she can make an educated decision on January 4th, and it's not going to hold up whatever the process is. You all are moving forward as though we're moving forward, is what I'm understanding. The meeting is set for January 20th, and we would decide on January 4th. Does that sound reasonable? Yeah. Okay. So then, would you withdraw? Do we withdraw the item or?
My motion to table is pending. We were discussing under the second.
Okay.
So
Thank you for
motion
that.
to table.
I think it would be a deferral.
Yeah, I think it would be as well. So I don't. Mr. Attorney, would we table the item or defer the item to January 4th, date certain?
You would defer it. I believe tabling means that you will take it up later in the meeting. So a deferral would be the motion.
Okay, do you want to change your motion?
I don't mind amending my motion to say deferring towards.
Okay, so the motion now is to defer to January 4th. Is there a second? Oh, I second it, so I'll go ahead and second it again. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, it's deferred to January 4th by a vote of 4-1, and Councilmember Fiore was the dissenting vote. Just make sure you're speaking, because Madam Clerk can't hear you. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move now to, and thanks to everybody. That was a good dialogue. We're going to move to, I'm so sorry, because I want to say 10C, but I know it's not 10, it's 14C. Item 14C. Is there a second? Madam Clerk, can you please read the item?
Item 14C, a resolution of the Mayor and Village Council of the Village of Palmetto Bay, Florida, ratifying and authorizing retaining Benedict Kuhn of the firm Kuhn Davis Law, PA, to represent the village in the lawsuit brought against the village by Councilmember David Singer, providing for the payment of fees for Benedict Kuhn for representing the village, providing for the payment of fees to Michael Pizzi for representing Councilmember David Singer, and providing for an effective date, sponsored by Village Attorney John De La Gloria. No public comments were submitted by form for item 14C.
Thank you. Mr. Machado, virtual.
I see no hands raised at this time.
Thank you. Ms. Gerald, do you want to come forward for 14C?
Thank you.
Press the mouse.
Is it
There you
okay
go.
now?
Yep.
Okay. Bev Gerald, 14271 Southwest 74th Court. I support this resolution. As I stated before, we need to have the very best representation for these issues. And as our attorney, John Della Gloria, has recommended, I feel that he is best able to make a decision as to who should be representing. That this is, I would hope that Mr. Cooney's services are not needed over and over and over again. But I think at this time it's important to have someone with the very best background at this type of litigation. And plus the fact that our own attorney has recommended his choice, I think we should follow his recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Attorney?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is recognized as the recent action Councilman Singer made. The reason ratifying an motion because the village passed a resolution when I was 15, specifying council I could employ other council I would have, which I do, by the way, item E on the agenda. But the reason why that language is because lawsuit, the lawsuit was filed a day before we had to go to a hearing. And there was no time for me to get back to the council and ask them if it's okay if I hire Mr. Cooney. So I made that decision. That's why I'm asking you to ratify it and to pay the fees to both councils who were involved in the litigation. And in fact, it's because of the issue that we're bringing forward E later today to just have me able to select counsel, because we don't want to get into a situation where I don't have time to get back to the council for them to call a special meeting item. So I would appreciate an affirmative vote on item C right now.
Thank you. Are there questions? Councilwoman Mattson. Your mic is not on.
Sorry.
It's okay.
I'd like Mr. Della Gloria to provide us with a total of the amount of money that the village, the taxpayers have had to spend because of lawsuits by the previous and ethics complaints by the previous council person.
Since I've based on the number of ethics complaints.
Mr. De La Gloria, I think we're having a hard time with your Wi-Fi or your connection. Go ahead and continue. If it continues, maybe I'll have you turn the video off and just use the mic. That sometimes helps.
Okay, let me try, and if you're having a problem, I'll do that. Since I've been here, it's in the approximate amount of $16,000. Some of that money has been refunded to the Florida League, which covers complaints that are brought to the Miami-Dade County Commission on Public Trust. However, the policy does not cover complaints for public records or sunshine law violations. So in this particular case, we're not going to be reimbursed, which will probably bring our total to close to $20,000 that have been spent since I've been here for the last 30 years.
That answer your
Did
question?
everybody hear?
Yes, we heard you. Does that answer your question?
Good.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. All right, are there other questions, comments? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, item passes 5-0. Mr. De La Gloria asked if we would move item 14E forward before 14D. Would somebody motion to move 14E forward? Is there a second? Madam Clerk, can you read 14E?
A resolution of the mayor and village council of the village of Palmetto Bay, Florida, rescinding resolution 2020-32 regarding retaining outside counsel and providing an effective date.
Thank you. Are there comments?
No public comments were submitted by form for
Mr.
item 14E.
Thank you. Mr. Machado?
I see no hands raised at this time.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Attorney, can you give us a report?
Yes, and it really ties into what I said previously. When I was first retained, the council indicated 2 firms that I could retain without council authority. This resolution essentially rescind that and simply allow me the ability to select counsel when needed with any specific specialty. I will keep the council informed as to who is representing you. And of course, we'll check with you to make sure that there are no conflicts, since we have currently on the council, legal counsel. And so I want to make sure no conflicts can arise, but I would appreciate you giving me the authority to represent the city in my discretion as to who I want to select as counsel to best protect us.
Thank you. Are there questions? Vice Mayor?
I was present when we, as a member of the audience, when we originally passed this resolution, and I am hesitant to go on my memory. I would prefer in future packages, when we're asked to rescind something, that we also be provided with the original resolution so that we can compare and contrast. The second point that I would make is that I'm concerned that this resolution may be broader than we need to legislate at this time, and I'm curious as to whether the village attorney can give me an example other than one council person suing another council person, which I hope is a thing of the past, whether or not there are any other situations in which the necessity for legal representation outside of what we already have access to and the specialties that we have previously approved would be necessary absent that particular scenario.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney.
Yeah, I understand your question. Let us, I can only give you hypothetical, which hopefully will not come to pass. For instance, right now we have in the Sincere matter with the Frangio Road construction, right now they're making a claim approximately 1.9. If I need to bring in a construction attorney, there not be a particular specialty of either of the firms that we currently have. If the firms can handle it, of course, I will go to them because they've been extremely successful in the defense of the village. But there can be a situation where the firms that we have now don't have the expertise to do that. And as we just talked about, I would bring in Ben Cooney because of his vast experience dealing with ethics complaints. So that's not one of the 2 firms we have. I hope that explanation is good enough. Basically, it just allows me to call on people that I've worked with for over 30 years, representing cities in various capacities.
The Vice Mayor has a follow-up.
Thank you, Mr. De La Gloria. For point of clarification, if the ethics complaint was brought against a member of the council but was not brought by a member of the council, would it be in your capacity and capabilities to represent us instead of hiring outside?
Yes, as a fact, that occurred very early in my tenure when a former mayor brought a ethics complaint against our current mayor. And since that was not a conflict, I handled that matter and happily enough handled it successfully. So in the future, if a former council member were to bring an action against a current council member, I would be the attorney representing the village.
Thank you for that clarification. And then if I might just further, in the construction defect or construction litigation example, it's been my experience that nothing happens quickly in construction law. So if I'm going forward with the understanding that this is a necessity because we have urgent matters at times, is it your position that that requires an urgent assignment that can't go back to the council?
It would depend on what the action that's being brought. For instance, in the recent negotiations with Cecere, the attorney on the other side, and we're working this out, we're negotiating, but the attorney on the other side said, well, he may have to bring litigation. And if that happens, and they stop work, and I have to run into court to get to enjoin them from walking off the job, that again is a situation where I need to. And in the case of Broad and Cooney, there was not going to be a meeting of the council for another 4 weeks. So sometimes this will arise. But as I say, I will keep the council informed and I will check to make sure that there are no conflicts with any of the attorneys I bring in.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any other follow-up? Okay. Any other questions? Okay, can we go ahead and vote? All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Nay.
Okay, item passes 4-1.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Does that, so that takes us back to 14D. Do you want us to hear 14D, Mr. Attorney?
No, that now becomes moot.
Want to withdraw it?
Yes, I'll withdraw the item.
Thank you. Okay, we're moving along. 14F. Would somebody move item 14F forward? Is there a second? Second. Madam Clerk, can you please read the item?
Item 14F, a resolution of the Mayor and Village Council of the Village of Palmetto Bay, Florida, related to procurement, approving the selection of ICMA RC for retirement planning services for 57-401 deferred compensation plans pursuant to request for proposal, authorizing the village manager to enter into an agreement with said company to manage the village employees' retirement fund and providing for an effective date, sponsored by administration. No public comments were submitted by form for item 14F.
Thank you. Mr. Machado?
I see no hands raised at this time.
Thank you. Okay, and we don't have anybody signed up here to speak to the item. Okay, is there a staff report, Mr. Manager?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is Olga Caraval, HR and Communications Director, and congratulations to the new members of the Council. The village has had its retirement plans with ICMA RC. This year, we decided to go through the competitive process to see what other services were out there, and also pricing in terms of fees. Due to the importance and the complexity inherent in retirement plans and investment, the village hired Aspira Financial Partners, a third party knowledgeable about retirement plans, to assist in the process, reviewing the proposals received, and to also make recommendations to the village. Following that process and with the services that were proposed by ICMA. We decided to remain with ICMA, however, under a reduced fee structure, and I can let Litzy speak to the specifics about the procurement process, and Desmond can talk about the fees. We also have, I believe, Mr. Chris Eilers from Aspira, who can answer questions about the competitive process.
Other questions? Discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Item passes 5-0. Next item
Thank you.
is, thank you. Next item is G. Thank you. 14G, would somebody move item 14G? Is there a second? Madam Clerk, can you read the item?
Item 14G, a resolution of the Mayor and Village Council of the Village of Palmetto Bay, Florida, directing the village manager to study the feasibility of eliminating the village's septic tank systems and converting to sewer system connections, and to review the report and recommendations of the Biscayne Bay Task Force to provide an implementation plan including system costs and potential funding sources, and providing for an effective date. Sponsored by Mayor Karen Cunningham. One public comment was submitted by form. Public comment was received by Eric Tolberg, who resides at 7884 Southwest 179th Terrace. While in support of the item, I think a phased approach would be best. A, before we get to existing systems, resolve that we will not issue any more permits for new multifamily or developer septic tanks. B, do not allow the use of fertilizer on lawns, hand apply to flowers, etc. C, consider what happens to the waste once it goes to Miami-Dade sewer. If you let this into the bay, you have not solved the problem. It must be injected or pumped into the deep ocean. D, converting existing systems should be prioritized by those that drain directly into Biscayne Bay east of Oak Cutler Road, those where the ground is less than 10 feet above sea level, those more than 500 feet from an existing sewer line, and all remaining. This is the end of public comments submitted by form for item 14G.
Thank you. Mr. Machado?
There are no hands raised at this time.
Thank you. This is an item I'm bringing forward. We know that we've got many septic tanks here in the village of Palmetto Bay. There is a septic tank vulnerability study that I provided the village manager. Actually, it's probably an older study at this point because it's from several years ago. I think sustainability in our village, as my colleagues, well, actually all of you probably are aware of, that we have, we're working on our CRS rating so we can decrease premiums for our residents. I know it's a bit of a bold item, but I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to the manager. I'm obviously open to discussion and potentially open to moving the item for further discussion at a COW, but I wanted to make a statement as it relates to sustainability, our septic tanks. And essentially, we really should know long-term what the cost of doing this changeover is going to be for our city. It's unlikely that we can afford to do it, but I think it gives information to our community and also sets a tone of having a commitment to making that changeover at some point in the future. At least it opens the discussion. So I'm going to turn it over to the manager, and I also am going to ask for the attorney when you're done.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think actually both aspects of this resolution are important. I think if you look at the fertilizer impact on our freshwater canal system as well downstream into Biscayne Bay, I think it's important that that the village takes a very strong stand on that. I've looked into the impact that any type of fertilizer action that we took would have in our parks or any other type of shared use facility or green space, and there's none. So I'm very happy to report that back to you. For the septic tank study, I think, as we all know, the big item is going to be the cost. So assuming that council would pass this resolution, I see one of my prime tasks to come up with funding solutions that might be available not only to the village but also to residents. Because as we step through the process, that last connection from the property owner to the sanitary sewer system is the problem that we need to solve in terms of cost. So I would see one of the prime tasks is determining some alternative funding solutions that get that last 100 feet of connection accomplished in a way that would be affordable not only for the residents but for the village as well.
Thank you. I know the village attorney also wanted to speak.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think to bolster the intention of the resolution, I wanted to offer some language that would be a new section 3 and then renumbering the following paragraphs. So with your permission, I'd like to read the language I would think would be helpful. And the section would read, upon the village manager's review of the feasibility study, the village shall begin the process of designing sewer system connections to replace existing septic systems that leach nutrients into the underground aquifer that flows into Biscayne.
Thank you. Can you read it one more time, please?
Of course. The section would read, upon the village manager's review of the feasibility study, shall begin the process of designing sewer system connections to replace existing septic systems that leach into the underground aquifer that flows into Biscayne Bay.
Thank you. I will say it's my item, and I was going to mention that there was a missing piece to it, and that is that we actually get a report from the feasibility study regarding the cost and potential funding sources. I don't think it's probably feasible to ask the manager to design the product that we're looking for, but perhaps if I could add an additional section, it would indicate that the manager would come back to us with recommendations and a potential implementation plan for action, including feasibility, cost, and potential funding sources, if that makes sense. It's actually the last whereas just bumped to, does that make sense, Mr. Manager?
It does.
But good catch, Mr. Attorney, I appreciate that. Mr. Attorney, since it's my item, can I go ahead and plug that section in, or should we vote on it?
Well, you'd be voting on an amendment to the resolution.
Okay, I'd like to amend the resolution with the section 3, moving section 3 to section 4. That is my motion. If there's a second. Discussion.
I'll second for sake of discussion. I'm not exactly sure what you're doing here. Are you adding septic tank to this? You're adding the septic system to it.
I'm asking the manager to come back. Yes, I'm asking the manager to come back to provide us with an action plan that includes feasibility, cost, and potential funding sources to make the changeover from septic. Again, I'm realistic in the fact that I know that we can afford it. The manager and I discussed that. This would cost far more than we could cobble together, but it would at least give us some concept of what the potential cost would be. Should at some point in the future we decide to reach out to the community, perhaps even through the community survey that I know we'll be doing in early 2021, similar in nature to what Pinecrest did as it relates to water. Obviously, we know that that didn't pass. That was a bond, referendum. But without, in my opinion, without the knowledge or the information to know what such a thing would potentially cost, I speak to many people who talk about, why do we have such a high number of septic still in the village? How can we go ahead and make that change? Well, the reality is the change would require money, but we don't have a number to provide the public or even a number to discuss. So for me, that was a larger part of this particular resolution. The fertilizer is also, as you pointed out, it's also an important component, but a larger component was to actually have some numbers to look at and to be able to provide the community, since it's something we're going to have to look at over the course of long term. To answer your question?
Yes, and I want to congratulate you for bringing this up. And I think this is a very important issue for Palmetto Bay, especially finding out how much it costs. And certainly I support your amendment to it, and I support the whole thing. It really, we need to start working on this. Thank you.
I look forward to the collaboration. Vice Mayor?
I agree that we need to be investigating and studying the feasibility of not only the fertilizer issue, but the septic tank issues. I think that your amendment could be implemented by merely changing the wording with regard to directing the village manager to study the feasibility to directing the village manager to study and report to council as to the feasibility of these two items. And that would need to be implemented in the title and also on line 21 of page 3.
Okay. So we'll double back in just a minute because we have the current motion. I can make a change to the motion. Councilmember Cody? But he can still hear you, so you can start and he'll jump in. Mr. Attorney, are you there?
I am. I'm sorry, I didn't hear anything the councilman said.
Just, there you go, press the, can you hit the mic?
Oh, there we go. I'm sorry. Learning to use all the new toys. Mr. Attorney, isn't it true that the county entered into a settlement agreement with the Environmental Protection Agency, which calls for the elimination of all septic tank systems in the county by a date certain?
I believe that's correct. I just don't know what that date is.
Okay. And so this is not a question of if it's going to be done, it's just a question of when it's going to be done.
But there still needs to be a feasibility study based on timing and cost.
Right, but the cost of putting the sewer lines down our streets is something that will be borne by the Water and Sewer Department of Dade County, and that cost will be apportioned out to the people who live within the village in a formula to be determined, I guess, by the county commission at some point in the future. Is that correct?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Well, I think that we need to take that into account in terms of what the feasibility is. I know that it is the last 100 feet that, I mean, my sister lived in Connecticut when they ran sewers down into her particular village, and it was that cost that was something that they had to, as a group, bear. One thing that I would suggest to the manager, I know that Y Green is an entity that will help finance putting solar panels on top of roofs to cut down on electricity. Could you make it as part of your feasibility study looking into perhaps having an entity like Y Green come in and providing the financing with payments through the property tax system like they do with solar panels?
Yeah, I think that would potentially fall under potential funding sources. It's a, that's a good idea. And it would come back to us as an entire report, even the information that you're sharing now regarding, the long-term plan for the county. So I think, I'm certain at some point we will be bearing some of the brunt of the cost. So just having a better understanding and being able to share with the community what something like that would cost, and also for us to know what something, how much something's going to cost as we start looking at a long-term plan for our village and for the South Dade area.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Councilmember Fiore. Sorry, Councilmember Fiore.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I agree with Commissioner Cody on what he stated about what the county wants to do in the future. And I will tell you, and I know Madam Mayor mean well with this, but I don't, speaking very frank and pragmatically, which is all I do up here, I don't know if right now, in the midst of, a horrible pandemic and an economy, that having residents worry about whether they have to change out their septic systems to sewer, whether it's in a year or 2 years, I just think that's adding another layer of worry to people to be more economically feasible to afford something they couldn't, even though I know it's just a study. But I think this is something that should be pushed off maybe for a year or so when the economy gets better. Again, just thinking out loud, we have seniors on fixed income, and if they have to be worried about getting rid of their septic tank and hooking up, like Commissioner Cody said, the last 100 feet, which can be in excess of several $1,000s at a time, where the economy is, may not fully come back for another year or two. I think the concept is good and applaud you for that. I just don't think this is the time for the discussion on septic tanks. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome, and I support your point of view. I would just say this, we're not putting any burden on the community. What we're doing is providing the council with information. And I don't know how long it will take to put the information together. It could take 6 months, it could take 8 months, it could take a year. So in my opinion, if we wait now to get the information, when the time comes that we need the information, we'll be back at, square one, trying to figure out what information we need to have. So I think it's really just an educational component for us to be aware and be able to discuss. And, perhaps as we move forward, we're having a visioning session this year, and then hopefully my goal would be to have a visioning session every year, right? Because we always want to be talking about new ideas, and maybe this is something that would potentially be plugged in a year from now as a part of discussion. So, but I do appreciate the conversation. So we had a motion on the floor. Don't quite remember what it was, but we were going to make a change to the motion, and I'll go back to the Vice Mayor. What is it that the original motion?
My understanding, Mayor, was that you wanted the feasibility investigation to result in a report on the 2 points, which was both the septic tank systems and also with regard to fertilizer decreasing. And in order to do that, you were going to insert another section 3. But I believe that a clean way to be able to amend your motion would be, or your resolution would be, to insert after study and report to council as to the feasibility of. Would that, and I've also noticed that in the title of the resolution, you've got both septic tank and fertilizer, but in section 2 on page 3, we're only referring to fertilizer. So I think we'd also want to carry over the septic tank reference from page 1, line.
What I was
5.
hoping to, I see I see it as two different components, and Mr. Manager, please correct me if I'm wrong. One is already very well outlined there. It's in section 2. It talks about the feasibility of fertilizer restriction program. The second component would be for a review of it's actually line 9 through 12 in the whereas. It would be to review the Biscayne Bay Task Force report and have the manager review the Biscayne Bay Task Force report and recommendations and create an implementation plan for immediate action, including feasibility, cost, and potential funding sources. I believe is the original.
May I ask you a question? Where are you going to put then the reference to the septic system? Where does that go? Because right now this resolution, in the caption, it deals with septic systems, as the Vice Mayor says, and it also deals with fertilizers, but the content or the text of the resolution doesn't talk about septic. So you have to add that in somewhere, because I know that your intention is to study both of them. So that has to be added in to your motion.
Okay, so we'll, thank you for that. The Vice Mayor was saying after the word study to insert, so it's currently it says to study the feasibility of a fertilizer restriction program that includes limitations on location, time, and amount of fertilizer that can be applied on South Florida properties, and so on. I won't read the rest of it.
Can I, Madam Mayor, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can I repeat the language that I was offering? And perhaps within that section, it could be a little more clarified if based on the Vice Mayor's comment?
Yes, please.
Here I am. The language I was is the following. Upon the village manager's review of the feasibility study, the village shall begin the process of designing sewer system connections to replace existing septic systems that leach nutrients into the underground aquifer. I believe that there was a comment about a report back to the council.
Yes, but and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I'm wanting, your comment is good with the exception of, I think we are looking at the feasibility, cost, and potential funding sources to do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yes, it does make sense.
Okay, so can we pull all of the language together now? Begin your start upon review upon
the village manager's review of the feasibility study, the village shall begin the process of designing sewer system connections. What should I add to that language?
So I don't think we're designing sewer connections. I think we want to, upon the village manager's review of the feasibility study.
Well, the reason I use that language is that it actually is the language from the county ordinance suggestion that we were given. We don't have to do that. I'm just telling you where that language came from.
Okay, so we've got, and I can hear the pen moving next to me. Give us 1 second. I see the Vice Mayor jotting down. Go ahead. Yep.
I believe Mr. De La Gloria's point is more well worded than what I was working on before, but it mentions design, which to me goes a little too far in the construction process. And I would therefore try and carry over both points that are in the resolution's title into paragraph 2, section 2 on page 3, starting with line 21. I would propose the following in order to put both purposes and the ability to report back to council in. And the wording that I would suggest is after the word study, we insert the following language: and report to council as to the feasibility of eliminating the village's septic tank systems and connecting to sewer system connections, comma, and that ends the insert, and we go back to the feasibility of a fertilizer restriction.
I'm going to withdraw my original motion, and will you make that motion?
I would move to amend section 2, page 3, line 21, to insert the language that I had previously read aloud, and for Missy's sake, I'll provide it to her, or I can read it once again if it's passed.
We can provide it to her, but if you want, do you want to read it one more time? Yeah.
Okay. So in section 2, it shall read, the village council directs the village manager to study and report to council as to the feasibility of eliminating the village's septic tank systems and converting to sewer system connections, comma, and end of insert, return to the original language, the feasibility of a fertilizer restriction program.
Okay, that's the motion. Will you second it?
Second.
Okay. Is there discussion on the motion? Okay. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Okay, now we're back on the item as amended. Is there further discussion? Vice Mayor?
I wanted to take a moment to voice a response to Councilman Fiore's concern, and I can understand that anyone paying attention to the fact that we do need to do long-term planning for this might get a little nervous about the potential costs. I do think, though, that this is a long-term strategic approach that we're taking here, and it would be hopefully more reassuring to our residents that we are looking at it not in a rush, but in a long-term planning fashion so that we can understand what it is, as opposed to bringing up additional concerns, which is why I would be speaking in favor of the motion.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Okay. All those in favor of the item as amended?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
No.
Okay. Item passes 4-1. And again, let's try. Yeah, the mic. Madam Clerk, did you record it?
Yes, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, let's move to item, and thank you all. 14H. Is there a second?
Second.
Madam Clerk, can you read the item?
A resolution of the Mayor and Village Council of the Village of Palmetto Bay, Florida, related to procurement, approving the selection of H&R Paving to provide roadway resurfacing services pursuant to prior invitation to bid, authorizing the village manager to enter an agreement with said company to resurface 11 street locations for the amount not to exceed the budgeted 2020-2021 amount of $250,000 and providing an effective date, sponsored by administration. No public comments were submitted by form for item 14H.
Thank you, Mr. Machado.
There are no hands raised at this time.
Thank you. Okay, is there a staff report?
Go ahead. Let's hear Director Torres, who's ever going to lead here.
Mitzi, you are muted.
Okay, I'm gonna start, and then DOU, you start after, you do after me. We did a procurement process back in mid-year to resurface roadways. And we went through the whole procurement process, and we'd like to utilize the same contractor, since it's less than 6 months from the procurement that we did. We figured we wanted to maintain that same process and keep the same vendor, since DO is working very well with the contractor. And so that's what we're asking. They're going to stay with the same amount, the same the same thing that they gave us the first time, with the same pricing and everything. So, Dio, you want to?
Good evening again, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. Basically, to segue, to continue off what Lizzie said, I mean, we are happy, we're satisfied with the work of the contractor, and since we had this ITB or procurement process just a few short months ago, we would like to basically use the same contractor for this year's annual resurfacing contracts.
Thank you. Councilwoman Mattson.
Well, certainly I have no problem with roadway resurfacing village-wide. We get a lot of traffic here and we need it. However, I would like to point out to the manager and also the council members that the locations that have been selected for 2020, 2021 are not really equitable in distribution about which streets are paved. For example, District 1 has 54% of the money, and District 2 has 27%, and my District 3 only has 18%. So I know that these were selected based on the need, but I'm thinking that there's also a tremendous need in Districts 2 and 3, because actually we have a tremendous amount of cut through and a lot of traffic in our area. So I would like to encourage the manager to have a fair distribution of roads. And if it can't be done this year, next year, to make up for that in terms of the district distribution for resurfacing. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? Council member?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I support the item. I think it goes a long way. And again, I give kudos to the mayor for the street by street initiative. We finally got that one street paved, 158 Terrace, I believe, between 87th Court. After campaigning in 2018, and the owner told me it wasn't paved for 30 years, actually got a nice phone call not too long ago. So I'm going to support the item. And again, I think it goes a long way to finishing up the street by street initiative in the city. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
I support the item.
Councilmember Cody?
I would echo the comments that Councilmember Mattson made. Going forward, if we can just make sure that the distribution of repaving money is done on an equitable basis between the different areas of the village. But I will support you.
Thank you. I just have a quick question. The streets that were selected, because I remember, I think it was last year, or it's well over a year ago. It's hard to believe, right? Because COVID, right? They did an assessment of the streets. Are these streets that were selected based on the assessment?
Yes, ma'am. And usually those engineering studies are good for a 5-year period. Director Torres, correct me if I'm wrong here, but we've moved down the priority list based on that study. If council's desire is to do it in a different way, we'd have to put our heads together and figure out how we would do that.
One moment.
Someone needs to mute,
Yes.
please.
Is there a staff member that's on that's not muted? Mr. Machado, if you could mute everybody and let them.
okay.
Thank you.
So I'll let Director Torres come on if he wants to add any additional information.
That's correct, Mr. Manager. We've basically gone off the priorities established through the road-wide, village-wide assessment that was completed. We're just basically doing the most critical areas or the worst areas first. That isn't necessarily distributed by district. And if we look at last year's distribution, it doesn't coincide, it won't coincide with this year's. It just so happens that that's how the distribution wound up this year as far as the percentages read off earlier by Councilwoman Mattson.
Yeah,
But it's
so-
based off need, so.
Thank you. And I knew that it was done based on the assessment, but I just wanted to point it out to the public because they may or may not know, and our colleagues as well. You had a comment you wanted to make?
Yes, I'd like to request that document, the 5-year study, to
Yep.
see what
Yes, ma'am.
streets are in order and where they're located.
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Might be a good idea, since we have 2 new colleagues, to just resend it to everybody. Thank you.
It's an electronic database, and I think we can all get additional access to it.
Thank you. Okay. Is that it on this one?
If I may, I just wanted to acknowledge that the village manager had pointed out to me the basis in science and the survey that we had done before, because you make a good point that the public doesn't necessarily know that the priorities are based upon the earlier report. I would appreciate maybe a summary of the earlier report, but not access to a giant database. If there's a summary that exists, but if not, I trust that staff is doing this in a scientifically based manner from the information that the village manager has provided to me previously.
Thank you. Okay, can we vote on the item then? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, item passes 5-0. We are up to 14I. Would somebody move item 14I? Is there a second? Madam Clerk, please read the item.
A resolution of the mayor and village council of the village of Palmetto Bay, Florida, relating to procurement, approving the selection of Caballero, Fierman, Llerena, and Garcia pursuant to RFP known as 1920-06-017 to provide the village with auditing services for the years September 30, 2020-2024 for the total amount of $184,463 and providing an effective date. Sponsored by administration.
Thank you.
No public comments were submitted by form for this item.
Thank you. Mr. Machado?
There are no hands raised at this time.
Very good. Then staff report, please.
We should have Finance Director Chin as well as representatives from the recommended firm on the line. Director Chin. I think you're muted.
Good afternoon, Mayor. Welcome the new council members. Congratulations. Yes, on the line should be Andrew Fairman and Enrique Llerena, if you have any questions for them. Last year for the 2019 audit, we had an interim auditor. So we went through the RFP process. We got 7 proposals, and the audit committee selected the Caballero as the highest ranked. Markham was 2nd ranked, and Garcia was the 3rd ranked. So tonight we're asking you to allow the manager to go into contract with the highest ranked firm by the audit committee, which is Caballero.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Cody?
Thank you. Mr. Manager, is the Caballero firm the firm that was employed by the village under the prior village manager?
Yes, sir, they were, and in fact, it was almost a year ago. It was January of this year that they were terminated.
And I know that there was a controversy about the use of enterprise funds to pay the salary of a village employee. When Caballero did their audit, did they flag that transaction?
I'm not aware that they did, and I think the other point of controversy was the real property transaction for the shore property here in the downtown area.
Right, the less than 1 acre that we got, and then the surrounding rights to the roadways around that property, is that correct?
Yes, sir. I think the controversy specifically related to the chain of custody in terms of the payment to the property owner, the village payment to the property owner, and how that chain of custody and how that payment may have been conducted, and the knowledge that the auditor did or did not have of that process.
And I'd like to ask the representative from the Caballero firm, why didn't you catch first the enterprise fund matter, and why you didn't catch the purchase, the payment of the amount to purchase the property?
Is the candidate on the line as well? Because are you asking the director, or?
Well, I'd like to ask the firm.
Okay, is the firm on as well, Mr. Machado or Mr.
The
Chen?
firm is on and they are self-muted. They need to unmute themselves to speak.
Okay, can you unmute yourself, please?
Hi, good evening. This is Enrique Llerena, representing CFLG.
Thank you.
So to address specifically the concerns that are brought up, the first matter related to the enterprise fund, I'm not aware specifically of what that matter is, nor have I discussed that with management. Regarding the transaction with the property, that transaction was examined, and I believe there were no issues with the transaction being an arm's length transaction and having proper approvals in place. As a reminder, when we perform an audit, we don't examine 100% of your records. So this transaction was evaluated, and the results of that evaluation was that it was an arm's length transaction that was properly approved and executed on.
What inquiries did you make of the village manager at the time, or someone involved in finance about that particular transaction, the enterprise fund?
Desmond, can you provide some additional clarification as to what matters being discussed? Because I served as the quality control partner. What year specifically did this transaction happen that we're referring to? Because I'm not aware specifically of any of the matter with the enterprise fund.
Okay, I just joined the council tonight, but I'm a little distressed at the fact that you don't know what we're talking about. So I would turn the matter back over to Madam Mayor.
Mr. Councilman Cody, could you clarify what transaction in the enterprise fund? And I will answer.
Excuse me, Mr. Chen, one moment, please. You can inquire of the manager as well.
Oh, okay. Well, the manager gave an initial response, and that's why I wanted to get the input from the firm that's up for consideration as far as the award of this contract. Enlighten me as to anything further?
Yes, sir. I think Council Member Cody is inquiring about staff, specifically the Community and Economic Development Director's salary that was paid, I believe, almost exclusively from the Enterprise Fund. If you could comment on that, either Director Chin or the Caballero Furman rep.
I can answer that, sir. Councilman Cody, up to the year the Caballero audited the village, only a partial salary was charged to the enterprise fund, which is fully legal, because the director was managing both the community development and planning. In 2019, when after Caballero was fired, they did not audit 2019 when 100% of the director of community and planning was moved to the enterprise front. And that's where the issue arose.
That answer your question?
And in fact, the firm last year did not catch that either. The manager had to call them and point that out to them.
Thank you, Mr. Chin. Vice Mayor.
Director Chin, a few of the constituents have mentioned to me that we had Caballero representing us for our audit in the past, but they had been let go. Can you tell me the date of that and the reason why?
I think it happened in the December 2019 council meeting.
So approximately 1 year ago?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you remember the cause stated? Or was there no cause stated?
If I remember correctly, it was Vice Mayor Dubois. He stated that Caballero did not get back to him on the land purchase transaction. But I think the firm did attempt, but I wasn't involved in the meeting, setting up of the meeting, so I'm not sure if they actually met with him or they tried and failed.
Thank you, Director Chin. Then I would just point out to the council that in the process, thank you to the manager for providing me with the appropriate Florida statute. Florida Statute 218.391 covers the auditor selection procedures. And in reviewing the packet and how it has been done, the second in line comes in very closely to the first in line. And I've got some concerns, and I've heard some concerns in the community with regard to returning to the Caballero firm when we've had history with them in the past. And I wanted to provide to my council members that Markham, the second one, which is following in the analysis only by total score qualifications by 0.25 for the average scores. We've got 86.25 for Caballero and 86 for Markham. Under subsection B4B in Florida statutes, the governing, and I'll quote it for the record, the governing body shall select the highest ranking qualified firm or must document in its public records the reason for not selecting the highest qualified firm. I think what we're doing here is we're documenting perhaps reasons why we do not want to select the highest qualified firm, and I would proffer that we consider Markham as an amendment to the resolution.
I would second that motion.
Okay, so there's a motion to move with the second firm in the ranking system, and there's a second. So let's have some discussion about that. Councilwoman?
Well, I have to say that I am concerned about rehiring a firm that we did fire, and also I am concerned about the comment that the representative from Caballero just made, and that is that it was acceptable because the council approved of what was essentially an illegal action. So that concerns me. Plus the fact that, according to the testimony, 2 firms did not catch the illegal act for whatever reason. They didn't catch it. So it does really concern me that our process is not working, that we have to have the manager who did the movement of the money illegally, from what I understand, from one fund to another fund, that it was up to the manager and the firm to ferret out that information, even though the manager was not giving the information. So that really concerns me. So, yes, I do support the amendment. I think it's a good idea. I don't really think that we should rehire the firm that we fired. Thank you.
Are there other comments? Council member? No? Okay. So there is a motion to amend to move the second firm as a part of this particular resolution. It has a first and a second. So can we go ahead and vote on that?
Well, I would like to just clarify that we're doing this because of the admitted failures of the Caballero firm to catch what should have been done as the basis for us rejecting an award of this new contract to them.
Can I respond to this? Can I respond to this, or not?
Yes, just one moment. I'm sorry. Since I can't see you, I can only hear you. I didn't know you were wanting to speak. Give me one moment, please. I do have one question. What happens if we don't hire a firm tonight?
I think it, Madam Mayor, I think that makes the timeline very short. Director Chin, what would be the impact of not hiring?
You're correct, sir. We're into December, and I generally have started pre-audit work already to finish by March. The firms are usually fairly booked up by now, and it'll be probably April when they start winding down. That would get a spot for an audit. So it's just timing of having the auditors come in.
Okay, thank you. And the Caballero firm, if you're still there, do you want to, would you like to make comment?
Yes, if I may, I'm having, it's troubling to hear saying that there were failures in our process. If you look back, and I encourage the council to look back and revisit how that a termination of service occurred. The underlying issue for the termination of service was a difference of opinion in terms of the effectiveness of our firm contacting one of the members of the council, which we have documentation where that contact was made. And I can tell you that we take our reputation very seriously. And what matters, ultimately what matters is that the council person felt that we had not responded to them timely. And we take that very seriously, and that is definitely an isolated incident in how we deliver our service. So I don't entirely agree with calling it a failure, because we did do our part and have documentation for the contact that occurred, and it just simply happened that we could not connect to revisit a matter. As it relates to the matter with the transaction that we discussed, not the enterprise fund, but the other transaction, we did not review that transaction in real time. We reviewed information after it had occurred, and the transaction had been approved to be executed on. So the proper approvals were in place to do that. So I think the concerns related to that transaction are a procedural matter within the organization. Also specifically relating to the enterprise fund matter, it's a matter of looking at the controls in place within the organization to prevent something like that from happening, because ultimately your auditor reviews information after your books and records are closed to the best ability of the organization to provide that information. So to in turn call that audit failures or call this a reason to overturn a decision of an unbiased external party that evaluated these proposals, I don't think that's entirely fair. But again, that's my opinion, and I just want to make sure it was reflected for the record.
Thank you. Question for the village attorney, and I know the vice mayor, who's also an attorney, read the Florida state statute, but based on your opinion, are we within our rights to make a selection other than the highest ranking?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep, we hear you.
Yeah. Yes, I was going to say something even before you called on me, Madam Mayor. The vice mayor has, as you say, specified the provision in the statute that requires us to place a reason on the record as to why you would not be selecting the firm. Councilman Cody has made it clear that the reason that this is not happening, among others, is that the firm did not account for the improper expenditure out of the enterprise fund. And that, in my opinion, is sufficient to satisfy the statutory requirement.
Okay, thank you. Are there other questions or comments? Okay, then seeing none. Madam Clerk, can you call the roll on this one? I'm so sorry. We're gonna, bear with me 1 second. We have a motion. Can you repeat the motion?
And
Yep.
the motion to amend simply substitutes Caballero out of the resolution and substitutes Markham in, and that was attachment DD. Markham Accountants and Advisors instead of the Caballero firm.
Okay, that's the motion. Let's vote on the motion to amend first. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, so the motion to amend passes 5-0. We're now on the item as amended. Is there other discussion?
Madam Mayor?
Yes, but Mr. Fiore, Councilmember Fiore. I almost
Yes.
called you Vice Mayor Fiore.
You
Sorry
call
about
me
that.
Commissioner Fiore. Thank you. Yeah, just for memory's sake, and I do believe it was December, January last year, that was a 3-2 vote to terminate the audit company. I voted against it at the time. I didn't think the reason. I'll agree with the company. I don't think the reason given, it sounded like it was more of a lack of communication at the time that didn't get back to the vice mayor. I don't know. I didn't think that was enough. Now, it's obvious subsequent to the discussion here tonight that the support to rehire this firm is not there based on all this other, maybe perhaps other information that came to light, which is more than just a miscommunication or a disagreement or that somebody didn't answer a phone call. So, and I don't want to put our new city manager on the hook, but I mean, the acceptance to move forward with the intent to award was signed by you and our procurement specialist. But again, I can sense that the momentum on this council to move forward or to rehire based on new items and new elements and 2 new members is no longer here. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Other comments? Councilwoman Matson, please.
Yes, I'd like to really explore why this happened. And it sounds to me, well, falling through the cracks or lack of communication or what have you, that 2 processes were not caught by the auditor. So I think that may be our problem. I don't know, lack of communication with the auditor, maybe the auditor's problem. But I think that we should really get to the bottom of it so it doesn't happen again. That's my comment.
Thank you. Is there anything else? Okay, Madam Clerk, call the roll on this resolution, please.
Councilmember Steve Cody,
Aye, as amended.
Vice Mayor Leanne Tellum,
Yes, as amended.
Mayor Karen Cunningham,
Yes.
Councilmember Patrick Fiore,
Yes.
Councilmember Marsha Matson.
Yes.
The item is amended, passed 5-0. Thank you. We're moving now to item 14J. Is there a second? Madam Clerk, can you read the item?
A resolution of the Mayor and Village Council of the Village of Palmetto Bay, Florida, related to procurement, approving the selection of Metro Express to provide sidewalk repairs and installation piggybacking from the City of Homestead, authorizing the village manager to enter into an agreement with said company for the amount not to exceed the budgeted 2020-2021 amount of $170,000, sponsored by administration. No public comments were submitted by form for item 14J.
Thank you. Mr. Machado?
There are no hands raised at this time.
Thank you. You're getting spunky back there. I can hear it. Very good. And we don't have anybody signed up that's present. Can we get a staff report, please?
Yes, ma'am. Director Torres, there you are.
Oh, yes, good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. We've done quite a bit of work with Metro Express in the past as far as our concrete repairs. They have a current contract that they were awarded from the City of Homestead, and we would like to basically piggyback off that contract to have somebody online to do the repairs for this year's budgeted amount or up to that amount. We had earlier the annual resurfacing. This is another item which is near and dear to the hearts of many of our residents as far as uplifted sidewalks or gaps in the sidewalk. And we'd like to be able to have a vendor on board to deliver this work for us.
Thank you. Questions? Comments? Councilmember Cody?
Yes, I support this item as someone who is a brand new wheelchair user. After one of my appointments with my surgeon, I decided to come back via Metro Rail and Metrobus, got off at 152nd and decided to take 87th Avenue in my wheelchair down to where I live. I thought I'd be very athletic in doing that. And just on 87th Avenue, I don't know if this covers that, but there are a number of sidewalks that are impassable, requiring, if you're in a situation like I am, to move out into the street. And in fact, a couple of places where I had to back up, went to the other side of the street, crossed, and that sidewalk was also impassable. As someone who used to do a lot of Americans with Disabilities Act work, litigation, I can tell you that it can be expensive to defend a lawsuit like that. I would also ask, not as part of an amendment, but just that the council be aware that we need to have in place a burial removal plan, because that will act in a long-term way to keep us from having to face immense liabilities. If we have a plan that says, one, we're moving to identify barriers in the village, and then two, once those barriers are removed, we will be making a timely effort. I mean, once those barriers are identified, we'll be making a timely effort to remove them. That will undercut any lawsuit that would be brought. And frankly, there are a lot of attorneys, I didn't practice this way, but who are very piranha-like in going after communities to force them to do things, and do things where if you have a plan in place, a judge will look at that and say, fine. And by the way, no attorney's fees for the attorney who brought this lawsuit, because they're already trying to address the issue. If you don't have one in place, then it tempts the court to say, you know, I'm going to have to force something to be done. And then once, under the Buchanan case that was decided by the Supreme Court a number of years ago, once there's an order recognizing that there's a problem, what follows is attorney's fees to a law firm. And it's always better, in my mind, to try to resolve the issues without litigation. But I am supporting this item with that, not with that caveat even, but just trying to raise an awareness of somebody who not only litigated for issues, or for years, the issues of the Americans with Disabilities Act, but now as a wheelchair user, that this is very important. This is something you can't just say, well, we'll take care of it next year, the next year, the next year. So, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would first like to acknowledge Mr. De La Gloria's efforts prior to our meeting in educating me as to the terminology piggybacking. I was a little concerned that we needed to have our own separate standing with regard to the contract. He explained the process to me, and I appreciate it, so that we will have individual standing with regard to our contracting with the contractor. And then second, to Councilman Cody's point, from what I understand, we have a continuing effort and a plan in place, and that this may be able to help improve it if how we can improve. But if we are working on our sidewalks on an annual basis and improving them on a proactive basis, as we are here with the City of Homestead's RFP, then it seems to me that we are already in play, and then we can improve the defense of any potential claims.
Councilmember Fiore?
Yeah, let me tell you, I'm very impressed with Commissioner Cody's commitment to Public Works here this evening. I mean, you too, Vice Mayor. I mean, that's very good to hear because, again, as my two colleagues who served with me the last 2 years know, I mean, we have a commitment here and I know my friend Miss Gerald knows the same thing, to fix the potholes, fix the sidewalks, fix the things and give the people the services for the limited amount of money that they pay, which is a good thing, $580 or $600 to provide for this. And I mean, I can go back now to the bridge at the park. Looks very good. The sidewalk, and then there's a lot of people here, especially the mayor, that had a lot to do with that, Miss Adler at the same time. And these are the things. So, yeah, I'm very impressed, and I'm going to support the item. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman?
Yes, I'll support it too, and I would like to encourage my new colleague to put forth a plan or a resolution that builds that in to our sidewalk. That would be a big plus for the village, I think. Thank you.
Thank you. I do have one question and a couple comments. First of all, thank you for your commentary. I think that's important. You are providing an aspect or a perspective, if you will, that's going to be quite different from the rest of us that are not in a wheelchair. So I definitely appreciate that. Are the sidewalks, Mr. Manager, the sidewalk plan, if you will, it's as needed? Are we using the same, I'm sorry, the small words are fading now. My apologies. All of a sudden I was like, I got so tired. When we talked about the streets and the assessment that was done on the streets, the sidewalks, did we also do an assessment of the sidewalks?
I don't think we did, Madam Mayor. If I could get Director Torres back up. I don't believe we had a similar.
You're
study.
correct.
Okay.
You're correct, Manager. They assessed the roadway conditions themselves that did not include the condition of the sidewalks.
So one of my, and I support the item because, I do walk on sidewalks here in the village. I also want to note that there are many sidewalks that are covered and shaded and they're very slippery, even if you're in sneakers. So something else to think about. But what I don't want to see happen is that in much the same way we were assessing our drain issues, was just, people were contacting myself or a colleague, and then we were sending the information upstairs, and those then became the priority. So I would like to see if we could figure out, at no cost if possible, that's not asking too much, is it? Some kind of assessment of the sidewalks as well, or at least to have some kind of evaluation process. I know Director Torres is still listening, but I was so appreciative when we were talking about prior to your arrival with the interim manager Truitt, we were talking about the drainage and did we want to spend more money, and Director Torres put together I think it's a 3-year plan, where we're going to cycle out areas and be able to clean, different areas. So if we only have X amount budgeted, I'd like to figure out how we can do that with this. The other thing I would mention, and I have said the same thing as it relates to speed humps and drainage and street paving, is when we do make a determination on how to spend these dollars and spend them wisely, that we somewhere find a way to post on our webpage so that individuals, and I know we're doing an update of the webpage. I may have to go back and take the survey again and add this to it. But if you're jotting it down, I'm not going to worry about it. But so that when individuals are trying to figure out where am I in the, in the speed hump queue, where am I in the drain cleaning queue, where am I in the sidewalk or street paving queue, that they're able to, log in and be able to get some of that information. And then lastly, I think you mentioned the Street by Street app. I think that is, potentially going to play a role in this. That's why I also want to kind of have a plan, because then there's emergency sidewalk issues, and then we just need to be looking down the road a little bit, down the sidewalk a little bit. And lastly, would encourage encourage everybody actually, but encourage Councilmember Cody to reach out to Mr. Tolberg. You can get his contact information from the village clerk. And I connected you with him before the meeting began when I heard his comments, because he really is an expert at sidewalks, pedestrian paths, all that other good stuff. And if we weren't in the middle of a pandemic, he would be standing here before us at every meeting, even for projects that we would see in the downtown, just solely focused on that one particular component. So good stuff. I'm going to be supporting it. Did everyone speak? Okay, then can we vote? Were there any amendments made? No. Okay.
No.
All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed? Very good. We are moving. We are cooking with Crisco. We are going to be finished at such an early hour, and we have a lot of items. So would somebody move item 14K forward? Is there a set? It was moved by the Vice Mayor.
Moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Madam Clerk, can you please read the item?
A resolution of the Mayor and Village Council of the Village of Palmetto Bay, Florida, relating to a grant approved by Resolution 2020-84 by Miami-Dade County Transportation Planning Organization, TPO, in the amount of $80,000 with a grant match of $20,000 to implement a feasibility study for fiscal year 2021 through the Smart Moves Municipal Program, approving the selection of Marlin Engineering to improve mobility, safety, connectivity, and accessibility for bicycle and pedestrian multi-use trails in our community, and authorizing the village manager to enter into an agreement for said services in the amount of $99,987.80 and providing for an effective date, sponsored by administration. One public comment was submitted by form for item 14K. Public comment was received from Mr. Eric Tolberg, 7884 Southwest 179th Terrace. As stated in Section 5, I have extensive knowledge and expertise in Village of Palmetto Bay sidewalks, paths, and bike facilities. Please contact me. No other public comments were submitted by form for item 14K at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Machado.
There are no hands raised at this time.
Very good. And we didn't have anybody sign up that is present with us this evening. So could we get a staff report, please?
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. This item you have before you tonight is to accept for you guys to consider the acceptance of the grant from the county to complete the feasibility study for the bicycle and pedestrian connectivity. We're going to be looking at our major, our major arterials, if you will, Southwest 144th Street, 152, 168, and 184 for that connectivity and for improvements to be made. Of the 100,000, it's 80,000 to be paid for by the county, and our match would basically be $20,000.
Okay, thank you. Are there questions? Vice Mayor, and then Councilwoman Matson.
I am in support of the item. The only thing I wanted to suggest, considering the scope of services is probably hashed out in the time when we actually thought we had to meet in person, and maybe we will once again. But in section 2 of the scope of services, it talks about how 2 interactive public outreach events will take place, only one after a conceptual design and recommendations have been developed. I'd like to encourage us to have 2 of those public outreach events, because if we're going to talk about changing the streets on these main thoroughfares, and we want to move the public along with us, our residents have the desire to speak up on these things and might not be able to make one scheduled meeting. And if we could just add another one onto that, I'd like to see it.
Mr. Manager, I think it sounds like a great idea. It sounds like the idea of somebody that's just spoken to a lot of people in the public. And it's good to have that perspective, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So we can do 2 meetings? Okay. Are there dates set for these meetings? No? Okay. I had Councilwoman Matson and then Councilmember Fiore.
Okay, I just want to point out that this plan, the bicycle and pedestrian connectivity, is along 1, 2, 3, 4 major streets. 144th, 152, 168, and 184 to connect the Old Cutler Road with the South Dade Transitway. So I think this is wonderful. This is really moving forward on 2 plans that the council back in 2019 passed, which was Councilman Singer's Walk Palmetto Bay plan, and I believe it concentrated on 168th Street, and my Palmetto Bay path, which concentrated on 184th Street. So I'm very much in support of this plan. I'm glad to see that we're moving forward with wide sidewalks that will allow people to walk, run, bike all around the village.
Thank you. Councilmember Fiore?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Dr. Matson, for reminding me that, Mr. Singer did have a plan similar to yours, not as large, but it was the same type of thing. So I'm going to agree with the Vice Mayor too on this and support the item. Thank
you. Councilmember Cody?
Comments? I support the item.
Wonderful. I would just also mention that the council, the 3 of us plus the 2 former council members, also approved the updating of the bicycle and pedestrian plan. I know that this is different from that. I don't necessarily know that we actually budgeted any money to do that completion, as we were, looking at our priorities. I'm sure when we vision, you'll hear some similar comments from my colleagues regarding the importance of pathways and sidewalks and those sorts of things. So just, I'm mentioning it because I know you keep these wonderful lists of things that we are going to accomplish together. So I'll keep mentioning that. And I know Mr. Tolberg, now that I've connected you, will also mention it to you because it does need updating. So, but I'm going to support the item. So with that, can we vote on this? Awesome. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Wonderful. It is 9:49, and we rarely have this opportunity to. Was there any other business? I don't think there is.
Mayor?
Yes, I'm sorry. Oh, yes. Madam Clerk, I recall you had said that there was one more comment.
Yes, I've missed reading one public comment that was submitted by form for section 12 of the agenda, which was the consent agenda. This public comment was submitted by Mr. Jerry Proctor, 9130 South Dayland Boulevard. His comment was based on item 12B. On behalf of zoning applicant 1777 Oak Cutler Road, LLC, please accept this request to set a standalone zoning hearing, no other items on agenda, on either February 24th or February 25th. Thank you.
Thank you. We voted right on that, so we're okay. Okay, great. Council comments? Councilmember Cody.
Thank you. I want to take this opportunity to thank the staff. When I finished my election, I came down, I met with the manager, I met with Missy, and I was given a tour of the entire facility, and I was very warmly received. And I look forward to working with each and every member of staff over the next 4 years. Forgive me if I haven't remembered all of your names yet, but I will get there, I promise. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councilwoman Matson, and then Councilmember Fiore, and then Vice Mayor.
Yes, I haven't had a chance to congratulate you in my comments on our Councilman Cody and Vice Mayor Tellem. Congratulations on a job well done. I'm so pleased that you're up here. And boy, if this is the way our meetings are going to go forward, we're going to have a great time. This is wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, just a couple of things. The Commissioner Cody brought up when we discussed the sewer septic tanks. The county agreed, and it's in there now, if you can look it up. Maybe we should familiarize ourselves with it, but they agreed to pay $1.6 billion over 15 years to address some of these alleged EPA violations. So that's something, I mean, I don't vote for the item, but that's something to look at. The only other two things I have is for the manager, and I don't know if we discussed this the other day. The signs for the bird sanctuary, since we're a bird sanctuary city. I've been asking for this for several months. I know others have. And, you know, it's kind of important that we get these signs in the ground at these open places by the canal, especially near 178 Terrace. You know, we are, hopefully we'll be a wildlife city too in the future, but this has to, you know, I think we have to move on this. And the other was the, and I don't know if you're familiar with it yet, Mr. Manager, the slow no wake signs on the canal. That was, legislation was passed by our former county commissioner, now mayor, Daniela Levine Cava. And I don't know if these signs, you know, have been put up, or the holdup, I think, was still the Florida Wildlife, the South Florida Water Management District. I don't know what the holdup was. Maybe somebody else can elaborate. But both those signs get up, but especially we've been asking for the bird sanctuary signs. Thank you. That's all I have, Madam Mayor.
Vice Mayor?
Happy to be here. Finally. I just wanted to reiterate something that Councilwoman Marsha Matson stated, and that is that through collaboration up here, we've gotten done by 10. We've gotten a lot of good discussion done. We've acknowledged the efforts of staff, and I look forward to further collaborative leadership up here and to the same within our staff, because they are the ones that bring the meat and potatoes of the agenda to us. And I'm greatly appreciative and excited to look forward.
Thank you, and I'll just add the following. As far as the canal signage, the manager and I have a tour of the canal with the executive director of the South Florida Water Management. I believe that's on the 18th. So we'll take a ride around, look at some of the erosion issues, and I know that the manager will come back to report that information. We'll also we can have some discussion about the signage. It was the Florida Fish and Wildlife, I think, where the holdup was with the signage, but I believe it's passed. I believe it's just making its way through the process. And something else you had mentioned. Well, I can't quite remember. So I would just say, first of all, Mr. Manager, amazing job this evening. I thank you. The staff, incredible. And, you know, not for nothing, this is the first, I said we've had a lot of firsts tonight, right? We have new council members, and we've got a new system now. We're here, and some of us are out there. We had 3 different ways to engage with the community, so that was also a first. And then, of course, we had the swearing in COVID time. So a lot of moving parts, and I know you've been extremely busy. I want to say you've been extremely responsive. I'm very appreciative of that. And lastly, I'll say, those of you that know me well know my affinity for yellow roses. My mother gave them to me for every special occasion. I wanted to share that with you. Obviously, it's a sign of friendship, but I think it is a very, very, you know, what we're seeing here tonight is very special. Doesn't mean there's not going to be some bumps in the road, but I think we're going to manage our way through it. Literally, manage our way through it. So thank you. Anything else? No? Oh, I'm sorry, Councilwoman.
Thank you, Bill.
He's from Delaware County, Delaware County, Pennsylvania.
Not bad for a Delco boy.
That's right. And I
really
was down
feel
the
like-
other end of McDade
I feel
Boulevard.
like at this point you're just trying to stretch it because we've never left so early before.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Good night, guys. Thank you.